I'm calling the meeting to order. And Lisa, would you do the roll call, please?
Mayor for a Day Johansson. Present.
Present.
Councilmember Deuce.
Present.
Jameson. Here. Skit.
Here.
Zimmerman.
Present.
Mayor Richardson.
Okay, we're going to have a little Pledge of Allegiance, and I'm going to have Kathy Freeland from Buellton lead us in our pledge. So if everyone will stand, and Kathy.
Thank you. Place your hand over your heart. Repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, before Mayor Richardson comes up, I'm going to take just a couple of seconds. I wanted to thank Mayor Richardson and the city for giving us this opportunity of the Mayor for the Day. It's really informative. It's really fun. And I was so not surprised, but I was so happy to see so many wonderful people that run our city. I didn't realize it was so complicated. It's very complicated, and all the department heads not only do one job, they do about 5 jobs. And their professionalism, their expertise, and their knowledge was very impressive, and I know that the city's in good hands, so I feel very good about that. So I want to thank everybody for that. I want to thank them for indulging my questions as well. And then I want to thank Mayor Richardson for running our city so wonderfully with the help of Brad Vidro, our city manager, and also the city council. It does take a village, and now I really understand it does take a village to run our city, and I'm really happy to be a part of it. I know that our city is in great hands, and that makes me feel very comfortable. There was one thing my father and I argued about, and it was my not being involved in politics, and so I'm dedicating my Mayor for the Day to my poppy. This is the only time you will see me up at this spot. So that's for you, Poppy. Okay, Jim.
Wait just one moment.
I got certificates too. I have business cards that say Mayor for the Day and a wastewater treatment certificate.
Guess what? Another certificate. City of Solvang, California, Mayor for a Day, Linda Johansson.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
The Mayor for the Day is it's a really interesting program. She really enjoyed herself. And it was amazing thing. She wasn't bored. She asked very important questions, and I learned something with the questions she asked. And we'd like for you to bid for it again and come back sometime.
Oh, yes, as long as the bank pays for it, I'm happy.
See you later. I want to, no, you weren't. I want to thank you all for being here tonight. Besides honoring the Mayor for a Day, we're here to honor law enforcement in our valley. You know, they've been getting a bum rap lately across the United States, and we want them to know how much we appreciate our law enforcement people and how much we depend on them for our survival and for our well-being. In the last 2 months, I understand in California there's been 5 law enforcement officers assassinated, I think is probably the best word, which is a horrible thing and horrible to have to live with. So based on that, we're going to present some proclamations. And I'd like Don from the Highway Patrol to come up first.
Would you like me to come up here, Mayor? Or would you
No, I'll come down there with you, I think.
Okay.
This is a proclamation honoring law enforcement officers of the California Highway Patrol. Whereas law enforcement officers of the California Highway Patrol play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of the citizens of Solvang. And whereas law enforcement officers throughout our country are committed to the protection of our highways, communities, neighborhoods, and families. And whereas law enforcement officers risk their lives each and every day in order to ensure public safety and enforce the rules of the road and laws of the land. And whereas our local California Highway Patrol officers have been involved in several high-speed chases within our city during the last year and have performed in an exemplary manner with no harm coming to the citizens of Solvang. And whereas our Highway Patrol officers have nobly undertaken the vital role of protecting life and property against reckless driving and endangerment of the public. And whereas the City of Solvang would like to express its gratitude to our California Highway Patrol personnel and commend those who, by their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities, have established for themselves an enduring reputation of the highest order. And whereas it is important for all citizens to know and understand the problems, duties, and responsibilities of the California Highway Patrol, and the law enforcement officers recognize their duty to serve the people of the City of Solvang by protecting their welfare on the highways of the San Ynez Valley. And now, therefore, I, Mayor Jim Richardson, on behalf of the Solvang City Council, hereby recognize and honor all law enforcement officers of the California Highway Patrol, encourage our citizens to support their local Highway Patrol officers, and thank them for their service to the community. Presented this day, November the 14th, 2016. And Tom, we
Thank you. On behalf of the California Highway Patrol, I want to thank you very much for this very distinguished award. It really means a lot to us. We're out there 24/7, 365 days, holidays, weekends, you name it, we're out there. And you can depend on us. There are some things that do happen out there, and we're the first ones that are accountable for that. And we want to assure you, all of you here in Solvang, that we will not let you down. We will not swerve from our path of duty and our mission and our oath. So you can rely on us, you can depend on us, and we're here for your safety, and we'll continue to be here for your safety for as long as time is. Thank you very much.
Now, next is the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Department. We have several officers, and I'd like them all to come forward because we want to honor all of them. This is a rogue's line. Which one of these guys are the bad guys?
I just hope nothing goes down in the next 5 minutes.
This is Sean police chief. This is a proclamation honoring law enforcement officers of the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Department. Whereas law enforcement officers of the Sheriff's Department play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of the citizens of Solvang. Whereas law enforcement officers throughout our country are committed to the protection and safety of our streets, communities, neighborhoods, and families. Whereas law enforcement officers risk their lives each and every day in order to ensure public safety and enforce the laws of the land. Whereas our sheriff's deputies have exemplary, tough jobs to strive to make policing safer and more effective by continuing to enhance relations and trust between law enforcement and the community they serve. And whereas the sheriff's deputies have nobly undertaken the vital role of protecting life and property against endangerment of the public. Whereas the City of Solvang would like to express its gratitude to our Sheriff's Department deputies and personnel and commend those who, by their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities, have established themselves for an enduring reputation of the highest order. Whereas it is important that all citizens know and understand the problems, duties, and responsibilities of the Sheriff's Department deputies and the law enforcement officers recognize their duty to serve the people of the City of Solvang by protecting their welfares on the highways of the San Ynez Valley. Now therefore, I, Mayor Jim Richardson, on behalf of the Solvang City Council, hereby recognize and honor all law enforcement officers of the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Department and encourage our citizens to support our local deputies and thank them for their service to the community. Presented this 14th day of November, 2016.
On behalf of the Sheriff's Office, I thank you very much for this proclamation. It means an awful lot to us. We have partnered with the City of Solvang since its inception as your law enforcement officers, and it's been a very good collaboration over a number of years. As Mayor Richardson pointed out, it's been a bad year for law enforcement. We hope next year's a better year. We thank you very much for this proclamation, and we want to continue our collaboration with the City of Solvang. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. We really appreciate you. Next is City Manager's report.
Just a few things to report. One, city residents and water conservation for October, they were down 17%, and that totals now 28% for the year. So we're just below that 30% threshold, what's our target. So, and then another on election results. Some may have heard that there was a tie in the voting for city council member. They are still counting votes. The mail-in ballots are still being tabulated, so we don't have a final number yet. But if in fact there were a tie, our resolution indicated that the city council would decide how that tie is broken, and it's going to be by lot. So we'll have an item probably at the next council meeting just in case that tie were to continue forward. So, but they are still tabulating the ballots for the council member position. And then thirdly, I'd like to introduce our newest employee, Holly Owen, is going to come up. She's our new Planning and Economic Development Director, and say a few words.
Good evening, Holly.
Good evening. It is my pleasure to begin my service to the City of Solvang. I wanted to give you just a little background on me very briefly. I come from the Central Valley, mostly from the city of Kingsburg, a little bit of a sister city to yours, and also some work in Healdsburg up in Sonoma County. I have big shoes to fill here. No slight on the shoe size of Arlene, but she's a great planner for you. I know you've had a tradition of good planning here and good city staff, so I welcome the opportunity to give my contribution. Thank you.
Welcome aboard, Holly.
Thank you.
Brad mentioned the close call on the election. I think that's an illustration of each vote does count. If we're having a tie and all the ballots aren't in, it's still anybody's race, it appears. Tracy Beard. She snuck out. Did she stay out? We're doing the public communications, written or verbal. At this time, please direct comments to the City Council regarding consent calendar items or matters not on the agenda, both in the jurisdiction of the council. Speakers are limited to 5 minutes. And I had Tracy up. We'll go next to Tracy Fahad.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council member. And I want to congratulate the mayor on his win. So congratulations. I know we still have counting going out there. This is Tracy Farhad, Executive Director of the Solvang Conference and Visitors Bureau with your tourism update. And first, I wanted to invite everyone, the public and the council and city staff to the very first Solvang CVB marketing reception. It'll be held Thursday at the Hotel Cork from 10 to 11 a.m. we will be announcing with a PowerPoint presentation and with a report about our goals and our marketing direction going forward. So it's kind of nice to be able to come and hear what we're doing ahead of time as opposed to just afterwards. So the public is welcome to join us. We'll have refreshments, and again, that's at the Hotel Cork Ballroom at 10 a.m. this Thursday. Then we also wanted to let you know about Yulefest. We're very excited to show our new poster, and we have lots of postcards here that we can share with everybody as well. And our theme this year is Celebrate Together, which we thought would be very apropos for what is needed out there in the world. And I wanted to give you a little update. We also have our new Grand Marshals who announced from our committee, and the Grand Marshals this year for Yulefest are the Nielsen family, with Nielsen's Market, with celebrating 105 years of serving the community. So we're excited about having the Nielsen family as part of the Yulefest celebration. We will also, of course, have our usual events, the tree lighting ceremony. We're very excited about seeing the upcoming tree that's going to be unveiled, as well as working closely with your Parks and Rec department. Mr. Lagerman is working on some new enhanced Santa Village creations, so we're looking forward to that. And we will have Santa in the Park and visits, free opportunity for photo ops, 2 solid weekends, starting with the tree lighting ceremony, and of course our holiday wine and beer walk as well. So in addition to all of that, we wanted to thank our sponsors who are making Yulefest happen this year, including the City of Solvang, you're our #1 sponsor, and the Santinez Valley, Visit the Santinez Valley Association. Waste Management is our sponsor this year, as well as King Frederick Inn and Pea Soup Anderson's Inn. So thanks to all of our sponsors and all the businesses making everything look so festive. Trees are going to be available through the YMCA Youth in Government program, and they should be arriving on the 2nd of December, just in time for that opening ceremony. So get your orders in through the YMCA. And that's it for tonight, and we look forward to seeing everybody at Yulefest.
Thank you, Tracy. Fred Colville.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Fred Colville. I always appreciate Tracy's very upbeat presentation. It's always a pleasure to hear her speak, and she is so positive. So I want to thank her for that. What I would like to talk about tonight is, first of all, in the 1 November issue here, there was the article on the Solvang OK's list of economic development for 2017. It was a very thorough list. I enjoyed reading it. What I was concerned about is the fact that it covers tourism and business. I'm waiting patiently for what we are going to do, what this city council is going to do for the residents of this city. What are they going to do in kind? How are they going to help the residents? What are they going to help them with? What are they thinking about? Well, one of the good things on tonight's agenda is sidewalks. But one thing is lacking, and that is lighting. The lighting in this city. Now with the new LED lights and the fact that the trees have overgrown most of the lights, we've got very little coverage in a lot of locations. The most principal location that lacks lighting is one of the biggest thoroughfares without sidewalks. And it's on the agenda tonight. And that is on Alicel Road from Maple to Eucalyptus. It's a blackout there. You ought to walk with me some night and take a look around town here. I'd be most appreciative. Okay.
Thank you, Fred. Mark Oliver.
Speaker slip. Good evening. I would like to talk about the Solvang Sphere of Influence and Annexation Proposal. And my name is Mark Oliver. I'm speaking on behalf of the Santinez Valley Alliance. And a recent article in the Santinez Valley News described the council's support for expanding the sphere of influence and future annexation of parcels currently within the jurisdiction of Santa Barbara County. The proposal is far more extensive than the article suggests, however, and the issue is also far more complex. The San Ynez Valley urges the City Council to reconsider this proposal because what is currently proposed is not in the best interest of the city or the surrounding community. Parts of the proposal are in direct conflict with long-standing Santa Barbara County policy, specific measures found in the San Ynez Valley Community Plan adopted in 2009, Solvang General Plan policies, and specific Solvang Greenbelt Resolution adopted in 2000. In addition, the proposal encourages the expansion of the city and accompanying sprawl beyond logical geographic boundaries that already exist. It does not constitute good planning. Your staff has pointed out that, quote, the city's general plan does not contain policies which directly address annexation, end quote. This is because the vision for Solvang did not embrace continual expansion such as we see in Santa Maria. Your staff has also noted, quote, the land use and open space conservation elements contain policies and objectives calling for the preservation of ag lands within the general plan study area and sphere of influence, end quote. That's Solvang staff. The San Ynez Valley Community Plan on page 200 specifically identifies 3 community separators that would be impacted by the current SOI annexation proposal. The green belt along Highway 246 between the incorporated cities of Solvang and Buellton, the southern portion of the Alamo-Pintado corridor separating Ballard from the city of Solvang, and the Highway 246 between Solvang and San Ynez Township. Now, I realize that at some time in the past, you looked at Janet Acres, High Meadow, Hillhaven, and other areas as part of the sphere of influence, but that has not been brought forward according to the article because of possible disagreements with the residents there. The community plan notes the need to protect these areas in the face of increased development pressure due to the proximity of urbanized areas and location along travel corridors. That's a quote from the community plan. Finally, in light of the ongoing drought and the need to import water and Solvang's immense CCWA debt, it's hardly prudent to plan water-guzzling projects. A more complete look at the issues is contained in our letter, which I've passed out to each of you. And I thank you for your consideration and our comments. We would be very interested to understand why you are pursuing this proposal. What is the thinking behind it? Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Bob Field.
Hello all, it's been a while, good to see you again. My name is Bob Field, I live in Santa Ynez, and I'd like to speak to the same subject that Mark did, and it's kind of new to me, so half of what I'm going to say is going to be questions. I apologize for only asking questions, but that's half of what I got tonight. I'd like to underline what he said about the community plan. You know, everybody knows how long it took and what it cost, and there was some controversial stuff in there. You may recall the proposals for 800 units of high-density housing and trail networks on private property, and there was some pretty controversial stuff. But the ultimate goal of preserving the rural character of this valley never wavered, and a prime mechanism to achieve that was to maintain these rural buffers between the towns so that the valley does not become like our nearest neighbor, the South Coast, where you can't tell where Goleta starts and stops, or Santa Barbara starts or stops, or Montecito or Summerlin, or worse, San Fernando Valley, or even worse, the Bay Area. The towns have just completely grown together into one blurry mess, and it was almost, maybe it was universally supported to keep them separate. And as Mark pointed out, 2 of the areas you have flagged in your SOI report to the west along both sides of 246 and up Alamo Pintado on both sides were the number 1 and 2 areas flagged for let's not do this. There were an awful lot of residents of Solvang who participated in those meetings. So I just want to underscore that point Mark made. One thing that's not at all clear to me, I'm moving into the questions, is whether you're contemplating just a sphere of influence or whether you see that as a step to annexation, almost regardless of what you say, the question's going to hang out there. Some years ago, Bob Breitman, the then head of LAFCO, said in a hearing where a local close by city was planning to expand its boundaries. And their argument was it's just sphere of influence. And of course, many residents were concerned about that. And Breitman said that LAFCO considers the sphere of influence to be an engagement, and the wedding is expected. I think you ought to be very explicit as to what your intentions are here. If it's to try to have a little more influence, maybe, over what happens out there, that's one thing. If you plan to annex it, I'll repeat Mark's question, what's the plan? I think in your interest too, as city council members, you need a more complete story, sales pitch for what and why you're doing this. Who does it benefit? How does it benefit people? Clearly, the property owners are benefited day one. The builders are benefited in the first few years. But longer term, if it's commercial, how do more hotels benefit your current hotel owners and operators? How do more shops and stores benefit your current shop and store owners? If Solvang's essential charm and magnetism, which personally I think it is its small town historic character, how does making it bigger and newer make it better? And a question that Fred Koval raised, how does this benefit the residents of the city of Solvang? And if you raise your eyes above your own horizons, how does this benefit the residents of the Santa Ynez Valley? I think that should be part of any report, any statements you make to the public. I think you owe everybody good descriptions, answers to those questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Tracy Beard isn't here. I have no other speaker slips. Is there anybody else wishes to make public comment at this time? Seeing none, we'll go on with the rest of the agenda. Next is council comments and requests. Would you like to start, Mr. Zimmerman?
Just want to welcome everybody tonight. Thank you for all of you showing up and participating in the meeting. My only comment is in regards to our economic development and what we're spending, what we have, and I just want to make a general comment as to the philosophy of thinking winter in the summer and summer in the winter, meaning it's good now in the summer, but let's look when it's, to the future of when the hard times are. So not to waste the money and kind of spend it foolishly, but to plan for the future and, kind of act like as if we don't have the reserves that we do. And that's my only comment.
Mr. Skip?
First of all, I would like to congratulate you on your win, even though you did have 66 people do a write-in on that one.
It was 82.
82 it's up to, and counting.
But 80 of them were Mickey Mouse.
Yes. Yes. And then in regards, and I want to thank Linda for coming up and being the mayor for a day, and with her generous contribution to, I can't remember, which event did you buy that one at?
I think it was last year's when the chamber gave out the awards, our awards banquet.
Okay, but anyway, it was a good thing. But Linda got up there and said, I'm for a loss of words. I have never heard Linda be for a loss of words. I've known her since far too long that neither one of us wants to mention, though we are coming up on our 50th high school class reunion this next year on that one there. The next comment is my report on Lake Kachuma, and it's actually it's come up about a half a foot with this rain we've had, but it's probably, that's not a whole heck of a lot. It's not going to end any drought, so we'll see on that one there. And then the other comment I'm going to make is to Mr. Oliver and Mr. Fields. The discussion of the annexation is kind of like, I think it was Mark Twain says, the announcement of my death is too early. On this one here, we have gone out and have we contracted for the study, or if we haven't contracted, we're in the process of an RFP to take a look at the process of annexation. And one of the major concerns is what would be the cost to not only the city, but the community as a whole. So the announcement that the city of Solvang is going off pell-mell, and we're planning to have an annexation next year, is far too premature. It will be an item that it will take, I would say, as we go through the procedure, it will take a number of years to take a look at all of the ramifications. But one of the first ramifications we're going to be taking a look at is what is the actual financial cost to the city. Currently, the way the county works is if property gets annexed into a incorporated city, the county still keeps most of the property tax. So in regards to that, even if people develop that property and raise the value of the property tax up, it does not do the city any good. I believe Lompoc annexed 10 acres from the county here last year, and I believe they maintained 80 to 90% of the property tax on that. So, you know, it's one of those things we have to take a look at. If we do an annexation and it's going to cost us a lot of money to maintain the facilities and we aren't getting any revenue back, it's good headwork says we do not go out and do things like that. But it is an item that it will be a long time coming. There will be plenty of time for everybody's input into the project, both the citizens and the neighbors of the city of Solvang, because it will definitely affect the neighbors of the city of Solvang. But it's the article in the paper went a little bit overhead on the top that we're on track to have this annexation in regards to that. So I hope that will calm you down a little bit, but do not put you into a false sense of security. But so everybody is going to have to take care of it. And on that room, is that one there? My last comment is in regards to the election. We had a very good turnout for the city of Solvang, and I'm going to be speaking to the individuals who did not vote at all. If you didn't vote, you don't have any rights to complain about the winners, be it the city, the county, the state, or federal. If your candidate didn't win and you didn't vote out there and you're just mad because the person you really wanted to win didn't win, if you didn't go out and vote, you don't really have a heck of a lot to complain about. And as far as I'm concerned, if you didn't vote, you should keep your mouth shut and live with what's going on out there. But that's my personal opinion. And my personal opinion will last only this meeting, next meeting, and half of the meeting after that. So I'm down to, after this meeting, down to a meeting and a half. So, and it's been a great time over the last 14 years. So, anyway, and off to Mayor Richardson.
Mr. Deuce.
Yeah, I went up and looked at the lake, Ed, and it's really noticeable that it came up a half a foot.
It really is, isn't it?
No comments tonight.
Ms. Jameson?
No comments.
Ed, actually, I was facetiously clapping. We're going to miss you, really. We appreciate you being here.
Oh, I'm going to still be here.
Oh.
Fred is sitting at that end of the front row. I'm going to sit at the opposite end.
Oh.
I don't think we need a seventh council member.
Oh, come on. Where's your sporting blood?
I have no comments. Correspondence received by city council. Anybody want to comment on that letter? Okay. On to the approval of the agenda as presented. Anybody want to change any of the agenda items, or on to the minutes of October 24th? Is there any additions, corrections, or deletions of those minutes? And if not, could I have a motion accepting?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Pass 5-0. On to the consent agenda. Does anybody want to pull any of the any consent, excuse me, any consent agenda items?
I just have a question on one of them
Sure.
that can be clarified, I'm sure, by either Arlene or Matt or Brad. The construction company, I see where we asked for all of their insurances on item, I'm ahead of myself here. The mercantile, are they all bonded?
Yes, we have the bonds.
Okay, that's my only question.
Any other?
I got a quick question on the warrants. Lompoc Excel Personal Services, what exactly is that?
Those are the temporary employees we've been using for the two that left. One's out on maternity leave, and then we have a temporary one at the counter until we've just finally hired her. Yep.
And then the one other thing on the warrants, the retrofit on the bridge, are we getting reimbursed for that, or how's that working?
Yes, that's, I believe, about 95% reimbursed through the state and federal programs.
Okay, great, thanks.
And I have a question on the warrants. There were 2 different charges on one of the meters at Sunnyfields Park. Is there a reason why we paid twice for that meter during that time, and the others weren't charged?
I do not have an answer on that one. I'd have to look. Was it a 2
Okay, I
month?
just saw that.
Yeah, I can
I'm
follow
sorry I
up on
didn't
that.
ask you before.
Yeah, I can follow up on that.
Okay, thank you.
If there's no other discussion on the consent agenda, can I have a motion approving the consent agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Second,
It's been moved and seconded. Yes, go ahead.
Just want to make one point. On item 2, which was the award for the engineering services for Mission Drive, Matt in his staff report put in bold, because there was quite a bit of discussion about bulb outs, if you recall. And there is one area that we're going to need to add a bulb out because there's not adequate room to get a ADA-approved access ramp in, and that's in front of the Landsby. So that south side of that intersection will have to have a small bulb out to have enough room for the pedestrian to be able to have a landing at the top of the ramp.
And that's the only one.
How
Where
far is
is-
it gonna
Other than
come
the
out?
one, that's the only additional change from what you approved.
okay, where is it in relationship to,
Wait, we're
driveway
gonna
to the
have a
Land
discussion
Street?
about it. Would you read that agenda? I'm just so everybody's aware of what's going on.
And Matt, I'm going to have you come up and explain better, but
Item 6B, award professionals.
6B? Would you read that, please?
Award
He
professionals.
isn't, boy.
go.
Services agreement, engineering services for Mission Drive intersection and crosswalk improvement project.
Right, good evening, Mayor Richardson, council members, Matt Vanderlinden, your Public Works Director and City Engineer. And so as you may recall, we have 3 locations where we're modifying the crosswalks. One is at First Street here at Mission Drive. The other one is the other 2 are at Mission and 4th Place. One of them is the 4th Place that extends to the south, and the other one's the 4th Place that extends to the north. So the crosswalk at 4th Place that extends to the north, it's proposed to be relocated from the west side of that intersection over to the east side of the intersection. That puts it more central between the crosswalk at 4th to the south and the crosswalk at Atterdag. So it puts it more central, but in order to get an ADA compliant access ramp on the south side of the street, there's not enough room with the sidewalk and the existing steps that go into the Landsby in that width. So we have to do a minor curb extension like we're proposing at the other locations.
Is that, now, when you say it's going to be further east, what's the terminus on the other side of the street?
The corner by the Rabobank.
Oh, okay, that's what, yeah.
The
that's
existing
what-
ramp
okay,
there, but-
That's what I understood it originally.
So on that location, the existing ramp on the north corner will be upgraded. So it'll just, basically, a lot of our older ramps work ADA compliant when they were first constructed, but the ADA regulations have changed quite a bit over the years. And so those locations where they're not compliant, we'll upgrade it. So it'll have the same geometry, or it'll fill up the same space, but it'll just be modified to be ADA compliant. But on the south side of that crosswalk, we don't have the room to put the ramp within the existing sidewalk area without it conflicting with the stairs. So the only option there is to do the 3-foot curb extension. That
3 foot, huh?
Yeah, it'll extend out 3 feet. And that's what we're doing on the north side at the Fourth Place crosswalk. The fourth place that extends to the south, on the west side of that intersection. No, I guess it's the east side of that intersection. Anyway, where that crosswalk goes on the north side, there's that big tree right there, and the
Oh, yeah,
sidewalk's
right,
all
yeah,
uplifted, and there's a catch basin right there, so we're gonna do and it's all curbed red already, so we're doing that minor curb extension there. And then, at the, there's no change at the First Street crosswalk, so no curb extensions at all on that one. But at the fourth crosswalk is a proposed one, the mid-block crosswalk near the transit center. And so that one, I believe it's on the, well, anyway, we had originally proposed the curb extensions on both sides, and the city council said, no, you don't want that, but you would approve it on the one side. I forget if it was on the north or south, I'm sorry. But actually, it would,
It's on the
I think it is on the south.
south side, yeah.
But, yeah, so I wanted to, I highlighted that to try to bring it to your attention, because that's something that's different from what the city council
Right.
previously approved. Yeah. So in order to upgrade and move the sidewalk to the other side of the intersection, we have to do that.
Now, will that restrict that loading zone in front of the Lansby?
Yeah, the loading zone will reduce in size a little bit, yeah. But there's red curb next to that, so part of this will be into the red and part of it will take up some of the loading zone, yeah.
Any questions?
That answered my question. I was just wondering about parking.
Yeah.
So there is no parking there.
Correct, but I believe there's space for 3 cars to park in the loading zone, and then it'll be reduced to 2.
Okay, thank you. Fred, come on, if you have a question, you can ask that now.
Fred Koval, Solvang, if there's a bulb out into the street, the question should be, will there ever be a chance for 4-laning Mission Drive? I think that's really the key.
That's a future, that's to be answered in the future.
Yeah, I know, but you gotta have a bulb out, you've killed it. You've killed any chance.
That's a whole nother discussion, 4-laning mission. We didn't discuss that in our mission improvement plan.
Are we looking for a freeway through Solvang?
No. All right, it's been moved and seconded. Lisa, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Deuce?
Yes.
Jameson?
Yes.
Skit?
Yes.
Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mayor Richardson?
Yes, that passed with a 5-0. On to the regular agenda, item 7.
Item 7, first reading of proposed amendment to building code regulations, Titles 10 and 11 of the Municipal Code, to adopt and amend the latest editions of the California Building Standards Code and establish special permit processing for residential rooftop solar systems and electrical vehicles charging stations.
Staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As noted, this is the update of the Building and Fire Code. The city is required to comply with the building and fire codes which are adopted by the state of California. The recently adopted code provisions will be effective in January of 2017, so we need to make our own code adjustments. We can either accept the codes the way they are adopted by the state, or we can modify them locally to reflect unique situations which exist here in Solvang. We have done that in the past, and we are recommending we do it again. So tonight with us, I have our building official, Mr. Brian Spain. Brian is our building official through California Code Check. And at this point, I'm going to turn the mic over to him, and he's going to tell you a little bit about some of the code changes.
Good evening, Mayor Richardson and council members. Thank you for having me here tonight. And I don't know if you've had an opportunity to read over the proposed changes to your building ordinance, but you'll probably notice that there's not really any extreme changes to it, other than I think first and foremost is probably you'll see that there's we're changing to further align with the international codes. And so the international existing building code is now becoming the California existing building code. So for years it's existed as Chapter 34 in the California building code. That is now being removed, and we will adopt, or will be adopting as of the first of the year, the California International existing building code. So that's probably the biggest change. And then due to state legislature, we're being pushed into the electric vehicle charging station now for kind of similar to what we've done with the solar projects. So it's just more of an expedited process for electric vehicle charging stations. Those, I think, are more of a summary of the three largest changes to your building ordinance. Are there any questions?
Are there any questions?
I got one.
Were there, see if I can keep my light going. What does Title 24 look like? Any changes, additions?
When you say Title 24, are you referring predominantly more to the disabled access or to the energy portions?
Energy portion.
I think that's definitely changing to be more of a tighter building envelope. And I went to a seminar on it a month or so back, and I want to say it's like 20% tighter, even further. So we're definitely going to see tighter buildings and more stringent requirements from an energy standpoint, and that's just kind of the direction that our state has elected to go. Just makes everybody's job much more intense. It's going to be harder to, for the engineers and architects and designers out there to provide compliance with it. That's just a fact, and they're going towards zero energy type approach, and also based on legislation. So it's going to make our job tougher on the enforcement side of things to make sure people are complying with it. It's not going to be a whole lot of fun.
That's what I heard.
Yeah,
that's what I heard.
It's not.
Going to be expensive.
It
It's going
is.
to be expensive.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It's a requirement that we follow the California Building Code, is that correct?
Yes,
So we
sir.
really don't have any leeway. We had some minor leeway in our own codes, but we have to follow the California code for construction.
That's correct. We can change it, modify it based on topographic, climatic, seismologic, and green building code requirements. I think are the primary elements that we can do findings of fact to change it.
Mr. Hanley?
What we have the power to do there is make things stricter than the California code. We don't have the power to find special circumstances to loosen the California code. We can only identify things that are important for us to address even in a more stricter fashion. For instance, I think we do some fire safety things here, or it's recommended, that aren't absolutely required by the code. But your staff recommendation feels that because of the local conditions, that fire safety mandates a little bit more attention to that area.
There's, just as an example of that, the California Building Code requires a minimum of Class C roofs, kind of period, generically, but here in Solvang, we do have requirements for some of those roofs to be Class A type roofing, just as an example.
Are there any other questions?
One other question here. I know, and you mentioned that, talking about electric charging stations for electric vehicles. I know that newest vehicles coming out now are hydrogen vehicles. Are they, do we have any, is there anything in the building codes requiring with hydrogen stations? Because I know there is a hydrogen fueling station in Santa Barbara, and I know Toyota, Nissan, Honda are all coming out with hydrogen-powered vehicles. I know there's a number of hydrogen stations in the LA basin and also in the Bay Area. And
to my knowledge, there's nothing currently in there, and there's not anything right now. And again, though, the Green Building Code, if the city so chose to make an amendment to be more stringent and provide that too, or something of that essence, then that's definitely a possibility.
okay.
Are there any other questions?
I have a question about the solar on the roof. Okay, what about solar on the ground? Isn't that part of this?
You can still, I mean, absolutely, you can still.
But are the
obtain
rules more stringent for putting the solar on the ground as to putting it on the roof? Because we're encouraging it on the roof.
I'd say that in a sense it's more stringent for on the ground because of it's a brand new structure on the ground, but typically it's become almost more streamlined for roof mount solar. So the requirements are pretty straightforward for a roof mount system, where if it's on the ground, how big it's going to be, how high is it going to be. Is it going to be a single pole mount with, a big rack at the top of it? So from a structural standpoint, it can get much more restrictive on a structural design.
And there's a huge one that you can see from baseline, a ground-mounted one. It is enormous. And you're just wondering, I mean, what do you have to go through to get the permit to do that?
That would just be, I would have to call it the standard building permit process.
Okay.
And it would just be providing the structural documentation to show that that system was designed for, predominantly wind loading. That's
Right.
going to end up governing it, and then, the electrical.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? Arlene, yes?
I'm just going to wrap up by reading you your recommendations. The staff recommendation is that you introduce for first reading by title only the ordinance amending our code to bring the new code into effect, to adopt the resolution stating the exceptions to the Santa Barbara County Fire Code, and to accept the exemption to the California Environmental Quality Act. I also wanted to point out, although my name is on this staff report, it was California Code Check that prepared all this work for us, and the ordinances, because they're the experts, and I, for one, am very grateful to have them.
Thank you. Now we'll go to the public for public comment. I have one speaker slip, Fred Koval.
Yes, my worry is, and the landfill task force worry is, when solars start their efficiency nosedive at 20 years and they're done at 25 years, how will the waste stream be handled? How will the city deal with that? Well, you got about 15 years to think about that, but it's going to happen big time. And that now means a removal and perhaps a replacement or not a replacement. And what do you do with the removals? Where do they go? How do you handle it? Okay, specifically to this tonight, I looked at page 93, and I understand your pages aren't numbered the way they are when you read it online, because everything's order goes from 1 to maybe 176 or whatever it might be. But I look at page 93, and it has to do with 105.2, work exempt from permit. And what I can't understand is permits shall not be required for the following. I don't know if this is new, or what is this, you know?
That's been in ordinance for years.
There you go. So why is it reiterated here? See? Okay, so, and then I got some licky things here when I read this, you know, about what size you can put on, 120 feet, what have you. So then I go to another item, and I look at it online today, and it's completely different. I looked over this today with another person, and it had to do with some section K, 113.4 violation penalties, and there was invoked the Chapter 1.2 of the City of Pismo Beach Municipal Code. That's what I found in here. I got it. I printed it out Thursday. Well, I went today and took a look, and it's gone. There's something else in its place. So I'm really lost here. I couldn't really follow this at all. And I'll hand this out so you can see it. And finally, I couldn't understand why there's an attachment 4. An attachment 4 has to do with something about to continue the banning of such burning already contained in the Solvang Municipal Code. I assume that it's being added to something else here. So those were just 3 of the items that I suffered through and really couldn't understand why it was there. I assume it was very meaningful. And we'll see. One, the Pismo Beach Municipal Code was, I went crazy after I saw that. Anyway, it's there, and I printed it out on Thursday.
Thank you, Fred. Are there any other public comments for this item? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council for action. Who'd like to start? If there's no comments, then can I have a motion accepting?
I'll just make one comment and then make a motion. In regards to Fred's comment about the solar panels in 15, 20 years going bad, we also have the same problem with all these electric vehicles that don't have the lithium batteries that are driving around it, because they go bad at about 100,000 miles, and they're great big lithium batteries that are really mean and nasty to get rid of. But I am going to make a move that we follow item number 1, introduced by second reading introduced for first reading by title only, ordinance number 16 what next in order, the ordinance of Senate.
Would you like to make a motion regarding the staff recommendation?
Staff recommendation, what the heck. Thank you. Hey, I gotta make my time last here a little bit long to make it worthwhile for my.
Is there a second?
And I will reluctantly second this, not in full agreement with more stringent requirements, but such it is coming down the pike. Not necessarily the best thing for anybody involved.
Will you call the roll, please? It's been moved and seconded.
Councilmember Skit,
Yes.
Deuce,
Yes.
Jameson,
Yes.
Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mayor Richardson.
Yes, and that passes with a 5-0. On to item number 8.
Item 8, introduction for first reading by title only, an amendment to Title 9, Chapter 2, revising the sewer code to add residential water softener restrictions.
Staff report?
Good evening again. So this item has been here twice before. And so what I would like to do is just highlight what's changed. Well, just maybe to back up and give a little bit of a review. So our wastewater treatment plant has been having difficulty complying with our waste discharge permit requirements, and we're seeking ways to reduce the salt loading to the wastewater treatment plant. And we looked at a couple different options, and after researching it further, staff felt that following a concept of taking incremental steps to address the salt loading to the wastewater treatment plant was probably a more advisable approach. So what staff is recommending with this staff report is an alternative ordinance that would prohibit single tank and low efficiency automatic water softeners and require that by January 1, 2019, all such single tank and low efficiency automatic water softeners must be replaced with high efficiency dual tank, dual sensor systems with diagnostic functions or capabilities and having an efficiency rating of not less than 4,000 grains of hardness removed per pound of salt used in regeneration, or install a portable exchange tank system. So with this proposed alternative ordinance, there would be two options. If you already have a high efficiency dual tank, dual sensor system that meets the 4,000 grains standard, then you don't have to do anything. But if you have an old, low efficiency, single tank automatic water softener, with this proposed ordinance, you would have approximately 2 years to either replace that with a portable exchange tank system or upgrade it with the modern high efficiency dual tank system, automatic water softener system, where you would still be purchasing the rock salt, putting it in the unit, but these newer units, which actually have been available for several years, so I'm sure there's at least a few residents that have these systems already. But anyway, so those would be the two options. And then in addition, I wanted to point out that the city council, I'm sorry, one other item. It's estimated that the ordinance would result in a 20 to 30% reduction in salt loading to the wastewater treatment plant. So it might not be quite enough to meet whatever requirements are imposed when we renew our permit. If you recall, in 2017, we'll be having to renew our state permit at the wastewater treatment plant. And so we don't know what all changes may happen with that. But so this 20 to 30% reduction, again, it's just considered an incremental step. So it's possible staff could be back here, a year from now, requesting further changes to comply with whatever requirements are in our updated, our new renewed permit. But also I wanted to mention that at a prior city council meeting covering this item, the city council directed staff to proceed with a citywide wellhead water softening study. And we've determined the budget needed for that is approximately $20,000. So if the city council still wishes staff to proceed with that, we're recommending that you approve a budget adjustment this evening for that. So that concludes my staff report, and I'm available for any questions you have on that.
Are there any questions of staff report?
A couple questions. I think you answered one of them already, but the new high efficiency units, how long have they been out? And would you have a guess of how many would be in the city of Solvang right now?
I believe they've been out since about 2009.
Okay, so they've been out there for a number.
But a water softener, these automatic water softeners have a life of about 15 years. Some maybe a little bit longer, a little bit less. So we really don't have any estimate of how many residents might have those type of units. But just by the virtue of the fact that the units have been available since that, for several years now, we figure there's got to be at least a few residents that already have those.
Okay, and this next question is for the benefit of Mr. Coble, who will probably ask the question if I don't ask it, is currently St. Inez Community Service District is a partner in our wastewater treatment plant. By us passing either this ordinance or any other ordinance in regards to water softeners, the St. Inez Community Service District are required by the agreement that they signed with us to meet our requirements for wastewater discharge. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. So our agreement with the San Ynez Community Services District has provision in there that any water quality regulations that are adopted by the City of Solvang, that the Community Services District has to adopt equivalent or more stringent requirements.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question. Based on that, if we did the wellhead treatment, do they have to do wellhead treatment out there? Or how do they come up to that level?
Well, that's a really good question, and there would be really no direct connection there. And what I'm saying is, the San Ynez Community Services District is a wastewater collection agency, not a water purveyor. So they don't have any wells. So there's nothing in our agreement right now that would really be a clear direct correlation for them if we did the wellhead treatment. Yeah. So.
But couldn't we put that on them then? That they have to have high efficiency or exchange?
Oh yeah, certainly what's proposed right now.
So if we chose the wellhead, just to ensure that all residents are in full compliance, or as full of compliance as we can be, we can put a different regulation on community services saying that exchange or high efficiency.
Possibly. I think that would be more of a legal question about the nature of the agreement.
What we do if we reach that point, for instance, let's assume for purposes of discussion, you introduce this ordinance and then you adopt it, and then a couple of years from now, or sooner as a result of the study, the city council that's then in place decides to go ahead with a wellhead treatment or something similar that's going to solve the TDS problem before it gets to the customers, instead of putting a solution on the customers. Well, we could come up with a standard to impose on the contents of discharge that puts the sewage discharge from the CSD to meet the same standard that's coming here, even if that standard is a result of us doing wellhead or some other similar pre-customer treatment. And we'd have to think about it. There would be actual engineering involved by people who understand that, which is why I'm not telling you what it would look like. But handling the legal form isn't that difficult. That's the easy part. The hard part that takes expertise and creativity would be up to the engineers.
So in other words, we would give them a maximum level.
Yes.
Okay.
What we do is we'd give everybody a maximum level.
Yes, but if we decide to go even more stringent, then we can
yes,
ramp it up some,
yes,
or down, or whichever way it's supposed to go.
Yeah, so just to add some clarification on that, if we did proceed with the wellhead treatment, we could evaluate what the salt loading reduction is being achieved by that wellhead treatment and require that they implement something equivalent.
To achieve.
Yeah.
So as of now, do we have a gauge on their discharge as far as their levels coming only from them?
We do. That was mentioned briefly with one of the other staff reports, but when we did the salt management study back about 5 years ago, we looked at the salt content coming from their wastewater and from ours, and the salt content is very similar. Theirs is actually slightly less than ours.
Okay.
My turn.
Sure.
I spent several hours researching dual tank water softeners. I could see nothing that indicated that there was any higher efficiencies in dual tank water softeners. The only benefit for them are they have two brine tanks. And the object is that they switch between brine tanks so that there's a continuous supply of soft water to the output.
Correct.
That's what it is, that there's no other efficiencies than the fact that there's no window of non-softened water. That's the purpose of the two tanks.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, so I don't see any efficiencies in the water softening capabilities of a dual tank system. Okay, no, that's not the first one. The second one is this specification of 4,000 grains per pound of salt. I could find nothing anywhere in any standard statistic or specification in any of these water tanks that specified water softening under this standard. There was none. So I don't know where this came from, but it's in my mind it's not accurate. It doesn't tell us what we need to know. At least it's not. These water softeners aren't sold that way, and so I'm wondering what we're gaining, and where that 20 to 30% reduction came from. If the only purpose of these dual tanks is just to have a continuous 24-hour supply of soft water.
Well, you're correct. The dual tank systems, the way they work is the system allows one tank to be fully utilized before it switches to the other tank. And then once it switches to the second tank, then it regenerates the first tank. So there's no loss of soft water coming into the home. And what that does is the single tank units, they're generally on a timer, and so they regenerate prematurely, and so they're regenerating more frequently, and that's generating more salt discharge. And then, the other part of it, which I really haven't brought up, is the water efficiency, but that's really not an issue. But the dual tank systems are more water efficient as well.
Well, what I see is that a single tank system, the newer ones, the more modern ones, don't generate on a basis of a timer. They generate on a basis of usage, and that's what these dual systems do too. They generate on the basis of usage. So I don't see any real necessity in going to a dual tank, except if the homeowner wants to preserve that window of non-soft water. But as a requirement that it's going to save 20 or 30%, I think that's bogus. I can't find any evidence that it actually saves the brine, the output.
Yeah. Well, all the literature that I'm not a water softener expert, but all the literature that we've received from the Pacific Water Quality Association, which claims to represent all the water softener manufacturers, this is the literature that they gave us.
I'd like to see that, because there's no evidence that I can find on spending those hours and hours on the internet trying to get an answer. And even in Wikipedia it doesn't even explains it the way I just said. There's no mention of 4,000 grams per pound of salt. And if there is something like that, and I can't find that specification, I would expect the city to give us a list of recommended softeners that meet this criteria.
Sure, we could do that. And just also, I'm trying to remember if we included it in the staff report, but the state code actually makes reference to this grains of hardness and the standards.
It's sure not specified in anything I saw. Yeah. It's just not there. And then I was going to hold off discussing this wellhead treatment. You say in here that that it's going to cost millions, plural, to treat wellhead water, and I don't think that we're prepared to spend millions to treat wellhead water. And I think that spending $20,000 to find out that we aren't willing to spend to treat wellhead water, because your estimate in my mind is valid. I don't think we should even talk about spending $20,000 for a study on wellhead treatment of water. That's my own, and I hope I can get the rest of the council to agree.
That was proposed by the city council.
But what happened to the grandfathering of the water softeners that we talked about the last couple of meetings?
Well, we felt this approach, basically the previous approach was to grandfather in the older units, and basically over the life of those units, so that over the next 15 years, as those units fail and have to be replaced, you would achieve the salt reduction. So it'd be a slow reduction over 15 years. So what this alternative ordinance proposes is to require everybody within 2 years to change out their water softeners to the higher efficiency units. So in 2 years, you'll get a bigger improvement, but then that'll be level.
You know how much
Whether-
those dual systems cost? Have you priced those?
No, I haven't.
You can get them for as cheap as $1,500 to almost $3,000. I don't think our population is going to want to spend that kind of money to change out their water softeners. I don't think it's a good idea to even consider that. I would suggest that we grandfather them, and then at replacement time, then they can consider either the dual tank or the single brine tank, because we've got that status right now with grandfathered in, and we're working it. So it would be my recommendation that we go back to the drawing board and talk about grandfathering in and requiring any new replacements of the grandfathered units, allowing no others to come into the city, but allowing the grandfathered units and replacement of the grandfathered units to be forced to go to the dual tank or the better, more efficient softeners, or go to tank swap outs. But that's their only options at that time. I wouldn't give it a deadline as to a couple of years from now to force them into that.
Whatever your pleasure is. We're trying to come up with all kinds of different alternatives that might be more palatable or less painful for our residents, and still try to comply with.
Couple of grand for a water softener is not palatable, I don't think.
Yeah,
Unless we want to take this $20,000 and give people rebates when they do, give them a few $100s off on their dual tank systems with this 20 grand,
What the millions of dollars, where did we derive the kind of general millions of dollars number from? What is that based on?
Well, we did a study a few years back on what was the name of that study? We looked at combining wells 22 and 23 for treatment. That was before we installed the plugs and in the bottom of well 22, and so the treatment system was comparable in there to what we would be required for softening, and it was, I want to say it was $6 million, $5 or $6 million, something like that. I forget off the top of my head, but
I thought we were treating sulfur. Is that right on the other wells? Wasn't it a sulfur thing?
yeah, hydrogen sulfide was the concern on the other well. Well, there was a few things. There was iron and manganese and hydrogen sulfide.
I mean, I know that at first glance, I agree with the millions, and looking at it and thinking about it a little bit more, it may be worth spending the $20,000 to see what it will actually cost, given the fact that we're not actually going to solve the problem. So we're going to, go through all this stuff to then still be not at the proper levels. Are we going to fix the problem, or are we going to just kind of put a Band-Aid over it and bleed and not actually heal?
Well, I think the water treatment we were discussing was the softening of the water, removal of the hard grains. That would be the water treatment we're discussing that's going to cost the millions of dollars.
Correct.
To replace water softeners.
And then put a ban on the water softeners.
And then ban the water softeners.
Okay, right now, we are dealing with a certain level required by the state of the
wastewater treatment plant,
wastewater,
effluent, yes.
In the future, can that change?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It certainly can.
The reason I'm bringing this up is federal level on chromium-6 is 1,000 or 100 parts per billion. California used to be 50 parts per billion, went to 10. We just heard that Title 24 energy codes have significantly tightened up. We might be spending money very wisely now to take a look at wellhead softening, even though it's going to cost millions of dollars, because are we going to be forced to it in 5 years because of such stringent requirements on the wastewater that that's the only way around it.
I agree, and I think it'll just the cost will drive it up because the demand is gonna be there for this type of treatment.
And then we don't have to lay this, well, it will get laid on the residents one way or the other. But at least we're not gonna lay fines on top of it, or penalties.
Well, if the changes in the specifications from the state are anything like they did for chromium-6, they give it plenty of lead time to accomplish those changes. I think it was in the neighborhood of a couple of years that ID1 had to go through the chromium-6 treatment process, and then that was extended too. So I don't think it's a rush to spend the 20 grand to do it until we at least know that we have to worry about it.
But then we're gonna have people that go ahead and they're gonna put in the new system, that costs more money, and then tell them that we're gonna ban it. I mean, what do we do then? Grandfather them in for a system they have in their house that's pointless? I think we need to step up to the plate and just handle it. Give something back to the ratepayer. Good water. Am I?
That's my point also. I'm not gonna repeat what Neil said, but that was why I pushed my button. I was gonna say the exact same thing.
Are there any other comments?
I'll put my 2 cents at this point here also. What I see is, if we wait and do it later, and wait for the state to come in and require it, we're gonna have to do the same study again. And at that point there, you're gonna have every little town that has a hard water problem doing the same thing simultaneously. And I have found that when you have a whole bunch of cities trying to do the same thing simultaneously, all of a sudden the cost starts going up because it is a seller's market of the people who have this equipment. And I would say it would be advantageous to take a look at a rate study, or not take that back, not a rate study, but spend $20,000 to get an idea of what we would be required to do, and give us an idea at that point in time. Do we take the bull by the horns and be proactive and be ahead of everybody else, or do we do what we did when we had state water? We knew state water was coming. We knew the bill was coming for state water. We didn't do anything in raising our rates and build kind of a slush fund to pay for the state water infrastructure we needed. And then all of a sudden, the bills started coming due, and we had to do a major increase in our water rates to pay for what was coming in. I would say it would be very advantageous to take a look to see what we are going to be required, what it's going to cost us, because I think, as they just mentioned with on our building code, the state is becoming more and more stringent on all environmental issues, be it health, or be it water, be it air, anything out there. And if I can see them coming up and deciding that everybody's salt level is too high, and we need to do this. And if you have all of a sudden 15 small cities trying to meet new requirements, and even if the state pushes the requirement out several years, it's still, you're going to have a large number of people all going for the same resources simultaneously. So I feel we should at least go through and continue go with the $20,000 for the feasibility study and see an idea of what it's going to cost us, because I think that's going to be a major step forward in the future.
My thought of that is that if we're going to spend the money to do a study, the question is, how long will that study be effective? Is it going to be effective for a 5-year period, a 10-year period? When do we decide that we're going to spend the millions to treat the wellheads And let's just say that we come back with a study in the next year that we say it's $10 million just for round talking numbers, or $5 million, doesn't matter which, but we don't do it because the requirement wasn't there for us to do it. But in 10 years, the requirement came about. Now we don't really know what the wellhead costs are going to be because of inflation and other factors. So if we're going to do a study, we ought to consider implementing the results of that study immediately. Because if we're going to spend the money to do the study, we ought to spend the money to do the project instead of wait to some distant time in the future where our money is going to be worth less. So I don't see any advantage in doing the study for that reason.
You know, I remember when we were down off of down there at the pumping station when we were looking at the water treatment for the river. And at that time, you were describing the facility and things like that, and how big it was, and there was talk of at that time for future water softening. So I think we're seeing that that this is in our future, water softening.
The city of Lompoc already doing it.
And so we have to do something about this wastewater now. Shouldn't this be the time to start really pushing into this water softening again?
Is this going to be an either-or situation? We treat the wellhead or keep the water softeners.
Well, just to clarify.
Let me jump in, because it's
You're
not going to be so
you're
much
going to come with a
engineering.
good point.
No, I'm gonna be gloom and doom, Mr. Downer, which I usually try and avoid. But the reality of the situation here is that your city attorney tends to hamper your public works director and encourage him not to draw roadmaps for regulatory agencies to fine you. And so he presents these issues in a very professional way to encourage you to take care of things. And in reality, essentially, you have a legal mandate already to be reasonable in trying to take care of things. If you don't take care of things, and by taking care of, I include anticipating the fact that when the permit comes up for renewal, the standards are going to be stricter. And if you aren't behaving in a reasonable fashion all along those lines, then you get substantial fines. And I'll bring up Por Los Osos, where I'm now the general counsel. That's just very recently. Well, it was a slightly different issue, but it had to do with subjecting the groundwater to nitrates instead of a particular type of solids. Well, they procrastinated and fought over which solutions were perfect as opposed to other solutions for enough years to accumulate over $6 million in fines and end up in bankruptcy because they didn't want to solve their problem. And so you've got policy decisions to make about how to go about it. But what your staff has recommended is an incremental step that he, after consultation with the industry people that came to the last meeting, would be an incremental step that he thinks maybe would reduce the salt into the sewer system as much as 30%. And perhaps maybe it'll turn out in a couple of years that that's gotten us close to meeting whatever new standard is going to be handed down. He hasn't said out loud that he thinks that incremental step is going to solve the issue for us. He's saying that based upon everything he hears from me and everything he knows about operating systems and complying with the Regional Water Quality Control Board permit standards, that's an incremental step that may turn out to help us enough, not necessarily to solve the problem, but to keep us out of millions and millions of dollars worth of fines. And those fines, even if they don't come out of the pocket directly of your citizen that paid $2,000 or $3,000 to get a higher efficiency salt system, they're coming out of their pocket in some way, because it's going to be either added to their sewer bill, if you have the ratepayers pay for the system, or it's going to come out of your general fund, and all your residents are not going to get services that they would otherwise get because that money went to something bad. Now, sometimes you can then negotiate, well, gee whiz, instead of paying $6 million in fine, I'll spend my $6 million on wellhead treatment or some other type of plan. But it's not dealing with the incremental recommendation that you're getting from your staff now is just going to put you in a really bad position. So you've got to start doing something now so that you're in a position to meet the standards, both what the total dissolved solids as it goes into the ground, but also just your duty of care as far as keeping the water control board off your backs in terms of fines. And that's just not a fun place to go. And so I want to emphasize that I've been an anchor on poor old Matt so that he undersells to you the necessity of taking these incremental steps instead of drawing a big red target on your back for the people who are in charge of issuing fines. So to me, doing something now is imperative. And then in terms of dealing with something that's going to reduce your total dissolved solids, Matt's recommending something that he thinks may do 30%. And then if you do a study, and your proper wellhead study would kind of talk about what you could accomplish, at least you have a real number. And Matt's numbers are on his guess is way better than a guess I might make as to expense. But if you spend some money on a study, it demonstrates good faith to the regulators, but it also gives you more information. And I'll just use the well 22 as an example. Many years ago, and since this was not Fred's fault, I'll go ahead and give Fred as the example. When I first came here, a different majority of the city council told us, don't ever bring up well 22 again. We were told bringing up well 22 as in suggesting that we make use of it is a fireable offense. We don't want to hear the words well 22 again. Well, eventually we started looking at it again, and some of the solutions seemed too expensive and weren't going to work. And your staff kept working at it, and eventually with more information and more studies, you came up with what now appears to be a working blending situation with capping certain parts of the well. But if we hadn't have spent the money on studies, we wouldn't have gotten there, even though some of those studies were about something else. They all gave us more information, so that eventually we got to not a perfect, but a good solution, so that's part of your viable water system. So I really recommend that you do something both now to incrementally stop or reduce total dissolved solids, and begin the process of studying what are the solutions that we can do, because the solutions that come down later are always worse, and the fix is always more expensive.
Excuse me.
So, Mayor Richardson, if I might, I've tried to listen carefully to your comments and the questions from the City Council. I mean, it sounds like possibly sort of a hybrid of this alternative ordinance and the prior ordinance is what you're looking for.
I want to go back to your source of information, their water purveyors, Softwater Water Purveyor Association.
Mm-hmm.
I have never heard of them, and that doesn't mean anything actually.
Yeah.
But they're a merchandising association, I would guess.
Sure, absolutely.
And
no
these
question.
numbers, like I say, I spent a lot of time trying to discover the basis for these numbers, and I couldn't find it, and I couldn't find any mention of this association. So So I'm leery of these numbers that you've presented here because it came from a marketing association. If you could provide
actually,
us with some more than just this, I'd be willing to look at it.
Sure, I mean, we could include in the staff report the literature they provided to us, which, I mean, I guess theoretically, anybody can write anything, right, you know, but I mean, they appear to be legitimate documents, legitimate literature that they provided to us. We also, you know, staff also carefully read through the state code, and that's where there's discussion of the grains of hardness and so forth. Yeah, so,
You know, I was trying to get that grains per hardness thing down so that I could judge for myself what I think is a better water softener, and I could find no reference to those, you know? Only reference I could find is prices.
yeah, I think,
And a little computer that does the switching between the tanks.
yeah, I think there's really kind of like two sort of processes. There's one process where the state manufacturer, or the water softener manufacturers have to demonstrate to the state that they have units that are meeting this efficiency. But then when those units are sold at Home Depot or whatever, that information, you know, may or not be contained in there. They've met the state requirement and had some state regulator look at that. And then, you know, so it's sort of a moot point at that point. It's not really relevant so much to the consumer at that point, because they all have to meet this certain standard.
Thank you. I thought Roy was going to tell us that we're talking too much about action regarding this item instead of questioning you, and it's. I think we're kind of we're just making a decision discussion right now,
Yeah.
when we shouldn't
Well,
be.
the one thought that did come to mind, you were asking about changes in regulations and so forth, and changes that may occur to our permit in the future. So possibly the previous approach is which is basically grandfathering in the existing units. That approach will potentially take 15 years to be fully realized as people that have just installed water softeners. It's going to be, you know, approximately 15 years before those units fail and they have to be replaced. But that will kind of buy us some time and have a softer, sort of lesser impact on the residents. And but staff would recommend that we do this study, because then now if we take the previous approach, we'll have a less impact on the residents while we do this study, see what the cost will be, see what happens this time, you know, through the next year with our permit with the state. We can at least demonstrate to the state that we've taken some steps. We did the salt study 5 years ago, salt management plan. We're taking these steps, whatever the city council decides, and then we'll have more information to make better decisions going from that point forward.
So you're suggesting that we go back to the grandfathering in, and then when there's any replacements, they'll be replaced with those high-efficiency units?
Correct.
You're suggesting?
That's like the hybrid of
Yeah.
what you're.
I think a key to it too is we get rid of that rebate, so we don't entice people to upgrade. And take the 20, or at least half of it, or all of it, get rid of the rebate and use that for the study.
Yeah,
Because ultimately, we're gonna move forward with the treatment, so we don't wanna, you know, make people think they should upgrade.
Well, we may not go forward with the treatment. It may be cost prohibitive, you know?
Well, just out of curiosity, or just for information, these new smartphones are really nice. Water Treatment Guide, watertreatmentguide.com, achieving brine efficiency and softening. So there is, I don't know where you're looking for, but as I was sitting here in the discussion, I did come up with a website. So there is, they are talking about grains per water regeneration, 1,000 grains per water hardness removed. So yes, there is a.
Do they direct you to, I looked at the product.
I went to water softening, water softeners, and grains of hardness removed, and it comes up with a.
Does it give brands?
I haven't gone through the whole thing. It's not giving brands. It's giving basically specifications. Salt efficiency for softeners installed in California must be at least 4,000 grains per pound. Efficiency ratings of softener must meet. Well, so yes, what they're talking about is 4,000 rounds. It is out there. You may not have found it, but by the state of California, it's giving several different solutions here because it's a number of pages and it's really tiny print, and I can't have a hard time reading it.
I pulled it up also. So the health and safety code, it actually talks exactly as Matt said. So it's
been
in the
effect
state
then
code.
for several years.
Yes,
So you would think that all the newer water softeners would meet those specifications then.
The California ones, yes.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but I don't know any of them that last 15 years in this valley. The softeners.
Okay,
You know,
yeah, I mean, that'd
they
be the-
I
just,
think mine
That'd be the
lasted
upper-
15 years.
that'd be the upper-
That was it.
that'd be the
I just went to replace it.
not ours.
Is there any other discussion or questions of the staff report? Seeing none, thank you, Matt. Thank you for taking our abuse.
Sure, my pleasure.
And Jim, there, if you want to
Jim.
take a note, write it down on that one there, achieving.
Okay. I will do a search on that.
Jim, have a cookie.
I've had about 4 of those already.
We'll have one more.
Okay.
It'd do you good.
Yes. You didn't have, did we have our nap today?
Yes, we did.
We did
No,
have
we
our-
didn't. No, we didn't. We spent a day with the mayor and David.
You definitely, you
Anyhow,
could not, with Linda, you could not
we
get a nap in.
digress. We have to go to the public for public comment, and our favorite commenter is up, Fred Koval.
Fred Koval, Solvang. Don't be too quick on that switch. Okay. So, first of all, I was really aghast when I looked at the minutes for the September 12th meeting. And it was clear there was 3 mandates on there. And I didn't hear much about the second and third mandate, but the first one was you were going this way and now you're going at right angles. And it's been pretty well brought out tonight. I have a solution to all this, and it's pretty straightforward. Based on what I hear, Matt said Lompoc's going in some direction for soft water. He also mentioned that for next year, that there's going to be a maximum contaminant level for effluent out of the wastewater treatment plant for nitrates and ammonia. And we're going to have to, and he shakes his head yes. I also want to point out to you my biggest concern. And that is, I did do a California Public Records Act a few weeks ago. And I present tonight what I got from that Records Act. Right here. What it says is that the TDS level has to be 1,000, and the sodium and the chloride have to be 150 parts per million. Okay? And then I look at the presentation, the document, written by the person that runs the wastewater treatment plant. We've exceeded those maximum contaminant levels. And I don't know how many years. The city should be fined big numbers for exceeding those numbers. I don't know how they've been hidden all this time, but they have. The city is in deep trouble, and they need to do corrective action, otherwise it's going to get worse. Has that sunk in? Here's the information right here. Given to me by Lisa Martin a few weeks ago. I'm surprised nobody's really come forward to say, yeah, this is the real issue. Now let's talk about a solution for everyone. You've danced around it pretty good. Some of you are right and some of you are wrong. It's pretty simple. It's right here. I did it in 5 minutes. And oh, by the way, as a side note on this 400 grains per pound and this double tank, I can make a case for those water softeners actually introducing more salt, more sodium, and more chloride into the sewer system and the wastewater treatment plant. Clearly, it's a marketer's plan. Double the cost, triple the cost. Certainly it is. And I have never heard such gullibility in my life. Facts and logic rule. Doing your homework rules. Only the mayor did his homework, and he really did it well. Now the rest of you guys and gals need to step up to the plate. Here's the solution. You treat at the wells. Do you know how long you guys have been kicking this, previous councils have been kicking this down the road? In my year, 96 to 2000, it was kicked down the road. And it's been kicked down the road ever since by every city council. A treatment plant. We knew it was coming. More stringent. Well, you heard it tonight from somebody else. It's more stringent. You need to do well making soft water. And that's, you got to remove a bunch of things now, according to Matt. At the well, you need to remove the TDS, the sodium, the chloride, and the nitrates. The only thing that you're going to have to remove at the wastewater treatment plant is ammonia. That's it. Outlaw water softeners. You can do that then. You can outlaw them in a couple of years when you put this online, or maybe less than that if you fast track it. That's what you need to do. That's the fair thing to do. You know, you've picked on the residents this whole time. What about the commercial? I asked Tracy Farrah tonight, how many hotel units are there? 730. What's their contribution? No, that's right. So that adds to the TDS. I don't know if they do that. We don't know they do. We don't have the facts to prove that statement. So all I can do is encourage you guys to step up to the plate, as I say again, and get going. Do something for the residents of this city. They require equal attention to the tourism, to the commercial groups. Thank you much.
I have no other speaker slip. Does anyone else wish to speak? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council for decision. Who would like to start? I haven't heard from Mrs. Jameson at all. Mr. Zimmerman? Mr. Skip?
I made my comments earlier.
Mr. Deuce?
Made my comments also.
Well, if there is no motion, we can go on to the next item.
I think that's foolhardy.
I'm sorry?
I think that's foolhardy to go on. I think Matt has outlaid a problem-solving situation here for us, and we need to act on it. I know that you don't want to have to spend the money for a new water softener. That's fine. I don't either. That being said, we have to do something to soften the water, and I think we need to do the study. And I would like to see I would like to see more of a period of time where people could keep their old softeners instead of just cutting them off. And I don't know, I've listened to you four gentlemen kind of banter back and forth, and we can't just, we're pulling this weight behind us. We know it's a problem, we have to act on it. And not doing anything tonight is just gonna put it down to the next one, the next one, and the next one. So I propose that we do something tonight.
My statement about saying no comment just did not mean I didn't want to make a motion or do something tonight. And one, I do want to, I'm not ready to actually craft a motion right now, and if somebody else wants to, I do want to make sure, though, that this study is in.
Well, then, might I suggest we bifurcate this item and have a motion specifically regarding the study?
The study, I'd like to see it done with, like I said, the money from the rebate on the September 12th meeting. Let's at least half, if not eliminate the rebate and use that money. I don't think there's any point of having $40,000 on the books for rebates for the taking, as well as do the study. Let's at least cut it in half.
I'll agree with that.
I'll go with that, too.
So let's have a, I don't,
Was that a motion?
well,
I'll make the motion.
Actually, the proposed ordinance does not add, the rebate program was pushed back last meeting in
Oh, we
in
didn't-
favor of the study. So no, there is no proposed rebates at this point.
Previously, there had been.
So we didn't vote on that? That wasn't what that was that wasn't part of that vote at on the 12th?
Well, we came back for another first reading, so basically, I'm sorry, yeah, the city attorney advised that because we had made enough changes to the proposed ordinance, we would bring it back for another first reading. And so basically that second first reading supersede the previous one.
so,
Okay.
and so it didn't pass.
The
This is the
rebate went
third,
away,
this is
right.
the third first reading, so,
Oh, I gotcha. All right.
because again,
Well, there seem to be some strong arguments about having the rate study. Is it,
Not a rate study.
well,
I'm sorry, the water treatment wellhead study, that's what I want to say. And
There's been no motion made.
no, we were discussing.
Okay, if we're bifurcating this thing, I will make the motion that we put the $20,000 out for the wellhead study.
I'll second it.
I was trying to get to, but
Okay.
where did that $20,000 number come up with? How was it generated?
based on the previous studies that we've done that were in similar nature and scope.
Okay.
So we think it'd actually be quite a bit less, but we haven't actually got hard proposals
Are you going to
yet.
do an RFP searching it, or are you just going to set out for bids, or how do you plan on?
What we were thinking is to contact 2 or 3 firms and get proposals from them.
So there's been-
Kind of informal, but get more than one.
So there's been a
proposal.
motion to do the wellhead water treatment, soft water treatment study for $20,000. That's been a motion.
That's a motion.
Do I hear a second?
I
believe.
seconded.
Yeah,
I
actually, the motion is to approve the budget adjustment to
Right.
to facilitate that.
Yes, we're
Yeah.
approving a budget.
And, well, that's also to do the study. To do the study and the budget adjustment. Okay.
All right.
And was there a second?
I seconded.
Joan needs a second.
Would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Deuce?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Skip?
Yes.
Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mayor Richardson?
Yes, that passed with a 5-0. That's step number one in this going down the road to show that we have a good positive intent.
Okay, this is the long range. Now we got to get the short range in,
Yes.
the interim Band-Aid.
Do we want to go, as the staff report suggested, that by January 2019, that we go to dual tank, high-efficiency water softeners, force that upon the residents of the city, or do we want to possibly grandfather in the current water softeners as one of those little tiny steps that would show intent of trying to
You know, I could go with something kind of a hybrid of that. I don't like the January 19th date for a high efficiency unit if we are showing real progress on wellhead. Okay.
Could you live with January 2020?
That gets better. That gets better. What I don't want to do is I don't want to force residents to buy new equipment while we're very actively pursuing wellhead treatment.
If we went with 2020, that would give them 3 years right now. I would say if we went with our $20,000 wellhead study, we should have, or actually you will have, because I'm not going to be here, except maybe seeing the opposite end.
I might be out there with you, Ed.
Yes, maybe, but it will be.
Oh God.
You can sit in the middle.
3 of us.
Fred, you would go in the middle, and
Yes, but if we
We'll be
go
your
with
bookend.
if we go with 2020, that should give the city council enough time to review the wellhead study for softening and determine if the city will be going with wellhead softening on their units, or we will be looking at going back to individual softening of the water from either rechargeable units or replacement units going back and forth.
I'd like to point out that because of what I studied, that the efficiency of a water softener, it does not depend upon the tank. It's a count of the number of brine tanks. A single brine tank water softener can be just as efficient as a dual tank, except there will be a period of non-regenerated water, be soft water, and so it's suggesting that we eliminate all single tanks, and I think
okay.
How about? Okay.
Can we put language in there then that achieves a certain level?
A high
of,
efficiency.
A certain level of
Yes, we
stuff coming out. Can we do that?
certain
And
level
if it
of,
can be achieved by a single tank or it needs a double tank, then
As long as it's high efficiency and
meets the 4,000
meets the
grams
4,000
or better.
Yes, certainly we can do that.
Okay, so, do we need a motion for that, or do we just need to ask you to come back for another go at this thing?
I would.
we made a motion on the study. Why don't we just make a motion on this, and rather than kicking it a can down?
If I listened correctly, a motion could include changing paragraph B of draft section 9-2C-9. So instead of saying dual tank, it just said unless said water softening or conditioning equipment is a high efficiency. Is the dual sensor is that a requirement for the dual tank, or?
Yeah, that's a component of a dual tank system.
Okay, so
Yeah,
then we would
take
just say
out-
a high,
strike that.
is a high efficiency
Tank.
sensor system with diagnostic functions and operating at an efficiency rating of not less than 4,000 grades of hardness removed per pound of salt used in regeneration.
So you take out the word dual.
I take out the word dual tank
and dual
and
sensor.
dual.
So you're basically talking about a unit, whatever
A high
that, whatever
efficiency
that.
unit would have a sensor system.
Yes, sensor system, and it has the 4,000 grain requirement.
Right.
And so whatever that looks like, as long as it does it.
And would you change the year to 2020?
That's up to
Yeah,
them on the
and
motion.
change the effective date to add another year or two.
Now, A question. If somebody puts one of these in, are they going to have, are they supposed to get a permit for it?
Yes.
Are they going to?
No.
Then how do we know that this has any teeth?
It's the same issue always when we talk about code enforcement. And so since I highly recommend that you have codes and you do your best to enforce them, the mere fact that people are going to be out there getting away with it because we don't put on our big black boots and kick down the garage doors to check things out, doesn't mean we shouldn't have an ordinance. Additionally, having the ordinance is further demonstration of our attempts to comply with our discharge requirements. And the mere fact that sometimes it's difficulty to enforce in particular cases, because a lot of times, and most times, people do follow the rules. They check it out. That's my experience. I'm almost as old as you are now. And even people who don't get the permit will install according to code. I can tell you this because every time I change out my water heater, I install it according to code. I never bothered to get a permit because it ticks me off like it does everybody else. But I always get it installed according to code with a plumber.
I
Yeah,
think
so on
probably a bunch of us do.
new construction
So
and
anyway, we're making a
remodel. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So
Anything that requires a plumbing connection or change gets a permit, and that will show up on it. It's the people who end up having existing systems.
But at the end of the day, the proof in the pudding is what comes out the other end. So I think in that, we can go ahead and we can say all these nice things, and I think we probably should, maybe to cover our rear end somewhere along the line. We do the study, and we put a lot of emphasis on that so we can cover the ultimate goal of getting the numbers right of discharge.
Then
So is there a motion in all that?
Well,
We go with, we change the language on B,
how about the date?
and
Go to 2020?
2020? Oh, 5 years.
sure,
You want to go to
Make it
2022?
22. Yeah.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved in second. Will you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Skit,
Yes.
Deuce,
Yes.
Jamison,
Yes.
Zimmerman,
yes.
Mayor Richardson.
Yes, that passes the 5-0. Thank you for that, Matt. Thank you for dragging us through this grueling
Thank you very much.
process.
We just saved the next city council along.
Part goes smooth. It did not.
We kicked that one pretty far, didn't we, Ed?
Yeah. Shall we take a break?
I'll do it real fast.
Okay.
Can you do this next? Well, we have a comment from the audience, which is going to delay us 5 more minutes, but we can probably. Yeah, if we want to go to item number 8.
Okay.
Item 9, I'm sorry.
Item 9, City Sidewalk Master Plan 2016 Update Final Draft.
Staff report?
Alrighty. So, city mayor and city council members, what the staff is asking is for your approval of this sidewalk master plan update with any edits that you would like us to incorporate. And so we've prepared a brief PowerPoint presentation. What we'll cover is the existing city sidewalk. We'll take a look at that. We'll also look at the 2008 sidewalk infill program. That was approved by the city council back in 2008, but with some minor updates by staff in 2012. We'll look at the costs for sidewalk replacements, the cost for new sidewalk, possible funding or the various funding sources, a summary of recommendations, and then ultimately the proposed 10-year sidewalk plan. What the heck? Okay, so, I've never seen that one before. Anyway, so this exhibit here shows all the existing city sidewalks shown in green. So as you can see, majority of the city does have sidewalk, but I will note that there were some locations throughout the city when various different residential housing developments went in that sidewalk was specifically left out to maintain the rural character of the neighborhood. And so that's noted in the city's general plan as well. So again, everything in green here is where we have existing sidewalk. What is this? Okay, sorry about that. So this next exhibit shows our current sidewalk infill program, which basically the whole program consisted of a map that identified different priority areas. And so we've also been updating this map since 2009, showing all of the locations where sidewalk and access ramps have been constructed. So all the green on this exhibit is where we've constructed new sidewalk or added access ramps. So the most recent construction of ramps is not included. In the Creekside subdivision, we installed, I think it was 4 new ramps in that neighborhood. But anyway, so this is the current so-called sidewalk master plan or infill program of the city. And you see they had basically defined priority 1 and priority 2 areas. Now what? Okay, let's try that again. I'm really sorry. Okay. Okay, because I practiced this before and it worked fine. I'm trying to advance it. Let me start over. I apologize. I don't know why this. Okay, so regarding our existing sidewalks, we have approximately 118,000 linear feet of existing city sidewalks. We've identified approximately 3,600 linear feet that are in bad or poor condition. So at a replacement cost of approximately $200 per linear feet for a 5-foot width of sidewalk, we estimate that the replacement cost for this 3,600 linear feet of existing sidewalk that's in bad condition is approximately $720,000. Regarding our new sidewalk, we've identified approximately 2,640 linear feet of new sidewalk that we're proposing in the 10-year plan. The new sidewalk installation cost is approximately $400 per linear foot. It actually varies from about $400 to $400 to $800 per linear foot. Part of that reason for the big difference in the cost is when you're replacing existing sidewalk, you generally already have curb and gutter there. You have road base that's underneath the sidewalk, and you basically just have to break out the existing sidewalk and pour new, compact the base and pour new concrete. But in the locations where the city still does not have sidewalk, a lot of those locations do not have curb and gutter. Some of them would require grading, tree removal, vegetation removal, relocation of private irrigation systems that extend out into the public right-of-way. And some locations, in fact, would require retaining walls, small retaining walls at the back of the sidewalk in order to install sidewalk. So that's why the average cost for new sidewalk is so much greater. And again, it's $600 per linear foot for a 5-foot width of new sidewalk. And so to complete that 2,640 linear feet in the 10-year plan would be approximately $1.6 million. The two primary funding sources are Measure A and the city's general fund. Staff have been aggressively trying to pursue grant funding for new sidewalks. It's very competitive. The various grant programs available. We were successful in getting $168,000 to construct sidewalk on 5th Street between Oak and I think it's Elm, and that work will proceed after the underground utility district. So we have an underground utility district that's been approved at the intersection of Mission and 5th, and once all that work is done and they've dug their trenches and torn up the street and repaved and everything, or patched the trenches, then we'll do the project to install new curb and gutter and sidewalk along the east side of 5th Street. But we also have been pursuing grant funding through the state, through Caltrans. They have what's called the Active Transportation Program. With this last round, I think they received, I want to say it was like $12 million worth of requests, and they had, I think it was like $2.5 million to give out. And although our proposal, our grant application scored pretty well, we weren't quite high enough to receive any funding. Then also, there is the possibility of requiring adjacent property owners to pay for sidewalk replacement. So that's another possibility. So a summary of our recommendations is to complete an average of approximately $140,000 worth of sidewalk work per year, and that would be include both replacing sidewalk and construction of new sidewalk. And we're recommending to allocate the funds approximately 36% towards replacing existing poor condition sidewalk and approximately 64% toward new sidewalk installation. And we recommend that the City Council give top priority to replacing sidewalks that pose the greatest liability risk to the city. We also recommend that we install ADA access ramps, ADA compliant access ramps and driveway approaches whenever we replace or install new sidewalk.
Excuse me, Matt. That last bullet point about install ramps and driveways, is that private driveways or?
Yes, so in a lot of, that's a good question. In a lot of locations, the location, the path that the sidewalk would take at the back of the curb would encounter a driveway, an existing driveway approach. Mm-hmm. And so to be ADA compliant, we have to provide basically a path either through the driveway or around the driveway. So the driveway approach would have to be modified to be ADA compliant, or modified such that the sidewalk could be routed around the back of the driveway approach.
Would that be the city's responsibility or the homeowners? Or
Well,
private parties?
It's your choice. Basically, the city has a history of including reconstructing of the sidewalks to be ADA compliant at the city's cost.
Thank you.
Okay, just a further question on that. And I am going to have to recuse myself on this when we get into discussion. I just want to sit in for the pictures because I'm going to trip over one of these things coming out my yard. But with, encroaching on the ADA portion of the sidewalk, what's the width of that? Is that still a full 5 foot, or do you go down to?
Yeah, we narrowed down to 4 feet. The ADA code actually allows you to reduce, I believe it's actually all the way down to 30 inches around a point obstruction. The city standard is 36 inches, so when I say a point obstruction, so let's say you had a 4 foot wide sidewalk and there was a fire hydrant or a power pole or something, or a street sign, and then the sidewalk can reduce down around that obstruction. But the general standard is 4 feet to be ADA compliant.
The question is, if you have a vehicle that you always park in a driveway that is long enough to where it encroaches into an ADA, do you lose your parking spot?
The vehicle in the driveway?
In a driveway
Oh.
that's long enough, you have a regular residential driveway out in front of the garage with, with
Sure.
the driveway access, and you have 4 feet of ADA sidewalk behind it. You
Well-
got enough car room, and you don't have enough room for your car that you park outside.
Yeah, well, let me tell you how we've approached that on the last few sidewalk projects. First of all, at every single driveway, it's basically a custom design, because every situation is a little bit different, the grade coming in or so forth. Also, we look at the right-of-way width. If we only have 5 feet of right-of-way width from the face of the curb back, then the sidewalk basically has to slope down through the driveway approach and then slope back up in just a nice straight path.
Okay.
And so, but if we have 10 feet of right-of-way, again, we would look at what the improvements are on the private property, because we do try to minimize the impact of the project on the private property owners. And we can shorten the depth of that the driveway apron, which is the sloping part. The standard is usually about 5 feet within the 4 or 5 foot sidewalk behind it, so that'd be 10 feet. But we can basically shorten the width of or reduce the width of the depth of the driveway approach to reduce the overall, width of that section. So,
Well,
I feel like
my concern is encroaching beyond the setback. Say you have a 5 foot setback, and you have to have a 4 foot ADA part of the sidewalk. That leaves you a foot to have your apron, which probably isn't going to work. So that's my question. Can you encroach into private property with an ADA sidewalk? Or will you?
No, we would not.
Okay.
Yeah, we would not encroach on the private property with the sidewalk, and just
Well,
to
we
clarify.
might get an easement to do something like that, if that's the only way that would work.
Okay, so you would get either an easement or
Yeah, but what you're describing can be accommodated within the 5 foot width. Typically, we have either 5 or 10 feet available.
yeah.
And we can make an ADA compliant sidewalk. It might require reconstruction of some of the curb and gutter, but yeah, it can be done.
Okay.
On that slope in the driveway that goes down? back
Right.
up, would that have those bumps in it like you do on on the corners?
No, the truncated domes are required where a pedestrian might cross the street.
But it's,
Yeah, but if they're just in line going down the length of the street, that's not required there.
thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Sure. And, let me see here. So then also what's recommended as far as sidewalk replacements, these 6 locations are proposed for the 10-year plan, and that's the west side of Alisal Road from Mole down to Molly, down to Oak, and First Street on both sides, from Fjord to Manzanita, that's down in the Alisal Glen subdivision. Holly Lane, which is in the Creekside subdivision, both sides of the street there at various locations. Mission Drive, of course, all along Mission Drive at various locations where the sidewalk is becoming damaged or uplifted in any way. And then Rebuild Drive, also in the Creekside subdivision at various locations on both sides. And then Second Street right here, next to City Hall, from Molly down to Oak. So those, again, are the locations of existing sidewalk that are recommended for replacement because of the bad condition of the sidewalk in those areas.
Is that $720,000 would be spent for those?
Correct. Yeah, this is the 36. What was it?
36% of repair.
Well, no, I forget the number. I forget the exact number, but yeah, that's the 720,000. Yeah. I was trying to give you the linear feet of sidewalk, but not again. He's got one left. Jeez. Okay. Sorry. Okay, so that is, this is the last slide. So this is the proposed update. So again, we were just showing for reference the recently completed sidewalks. On this one, it does show the access ramps there in the Creekside subdivision and other places that were recently located. There's one on Fjord where we just completed. But and so all the locations of proposed new sidewalk are broken into two categories. Priority 1, which are proposed to be completed over the next 10 years. And as funds are available, we would continue then into Priority 2. So, do we have a pointer? No, anyway. So the locations there along 5th Street, we received grant funding for those. So these locations, these locations here along 5th Street and this one block here, we've received grant funding for those locations, and as mentioned, we're scheduling that to follow the underground utility district work. And the locations here by the school, by Solvang School right here, those are the locations that we had included in our grant application to Caltrans, but unfortunately we're unsuccessful in getting any funding. So those will also be Priority 1 locations. And then this location is along Mission Drive. There's that one little stretch on the south side of Mission Drive by a couple of the hotels there that were missing sidewalk. And then this is the location at the end of Adderdag, kind of where Adderdag just has that little odd dead end and the sidewalk just ends. And so these are the locations. The ones in red and the Priority 2 locations shown in yellow, like along Alisal Road, these are the locations that we received the most requests for in the sidewalk workshop that we held a few months back. So the actual full sidewalk master plan report does summarize the results of the workshop, the sidewalk workshop, and the different requests that we received. But anyway, so this is what we're asking for your approval of, with any changes or modifications that you'd like to direct staff to implement. So that completes the staff report.
Question for actually, well, I'm sure Bright, for Roy. On this particular one, since it's a long-term project, if city council's person has something within 500 feet of, say, either the red or the yellow, should they recuse themselves on this?
Yeah, generally speaking, a master plan is not the type of action that creates the conflict. The conflict would be when we come up to an award of contracts, et cetera. Although it's always better to ask the questions.
That's why I'm asking.
Well, I meant ahead of time, because then I can get real answers instead of being, because if I'm just addressing at the council meeting, I tend to get ultra conservative about stepping down as
Because I
opposed
know there's
to
at least
participating.
2 and maybe 3 city council people would have to sit down if otherwise.
Yeah, we could always try, if there's 3 conflicted council members, we use a game of lot to decide. Yes, we get one person requalified and
The replacement sidewalks don't count because they're maintenance, right?
no, there's the,
I mean,
yeah.
they're damaged and they're being repaired.
That doesn't change the conflict analysis, no.
I mean, are you saying that over in the creekside where that is, I'm
So we have 4,
500 feet.
we're now 4 out of 5.
But it's a repair project, it's not a.
Repair has nothing to do with whether or not there's a conflict.
It's an improvement, huh?
Yeah, it's basically, if you're gonna, it's spend, the idea is repairing a sidewalk has the potential for either increasing or decreasing the value of real property near it, depending on how you view sidewalks, but, so it's a penny either direction is what.
Say that about a water main.
That can happen. The theory with water mains is that applies.
Infrastructure improvement
It
for
can.
repair
Yeah.
within our
The fact that it's a repair doesn't change the analysis. Well, one thing about master plans like this is if the plan itself affects what they call a significant number of members of the community equally, then nobody's conflicted. And generally that's about, if it's 10% or more, or do we have, I hate to try to do math, but if we look at this master plan, can we say that about 10% or more of the lots are within 500 feet of the colored lines? I mean, we have.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So in that case, I think nobody's conflicted. I just kind of had to work my way through that in my brain. I would have preferred to really go through the analysis, but there is an exception. And this doesn't apply just to small cities, it's just cities in general, that if the decision affects a significant segment of the public in the same manner as it affects the official, then nobody's conflicted. And in this case, this project covers so much of the city that so many of the lots are in between. Everybody's being similarly either benefited or detrimented, depending on your viewpoint of the project. So I think everybody can vote.
I have a question. So this is already enacted with the state, these ADA requirements, right? Since we don't comply, are we liable or at risk of a lawsuit?
The short answer, well, we're always at risk of a lawsuit because anybody with a computer and $400 can file one. But the reality is we have a transition plan in effect that's in compliance with state law. So we're doing the things properly to come into compliance. So we would win.
Okay.
Yeah, the other thing, just so you're aware, the staff is documenting how much money we're spending every year for ADA compliance, and it's been considerable for the last several years. So,
A memory refresher for Councilman Skitt. Down on the end of Adderdag, the little parking space for the crippled 55 Chevy, last name is Ibsen, what was his first name?
I can't even remember
Was it
now.
Jens?
Could have been.
Okay, just a point of curiosity. That little bitty red spot you got down there, that was where he was right in front of his house. which stayed there for a while after Phil Condit developed things, and so they built the fence around there. He lived there till he died. That was his parking space. That's why there's no sidewalk there.
If there are no more questions of the staff report, we'll go to the public. I have one speaker slip from our resident commenter,
Like I said,
Fred Koval.
we just need to give Fred his own
Thank you much.
agenda
A
item.
little history. If you can figure out, where Bicycle J's place is, I think that's First Place. You go up between that and the Ace Hardware, and you go up and you hit First Street. I don't see it here on the plan, maybe I missed it, but First Street doesn't have any sidewalks for the first couple of blocks. And except on the north side of the road, it's asphalt all the way to the next street. It's asphalt. It's asphalt in front of the beauty salon. It's asphalt in front of the shoe repair guy. It's asphalt all the way to the corner. That's the sidewalk.
Saying First Street, I was thinking
First Street. Yeah, it's all asphalt. Did anybody walk these streets? Is that covered?
Right there.
Where? Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
And then you go up,
It's not.
and then you go up to here, right here. It's on the plan.
No. First Street is not. Basically, Fur is, yes, correct.
What are you doing about the rest of this? They tried to do it. They tried to do it, and everybody's encroached. I mean, it's worse encroachment like you've ever seen. That's about 20 years ago. Then you've got Alisell Road, my favorite spot, Maple to Eucalyptus. It was kind of interesting. Back a few years ago, a guy put in some apartments in the back. And as a condition of approval, not only did he put in a short sidewalk there in front of his property, but he also was forced to put in a street light. And it's a street light, sodium vapor, just like the ones that are downtown. It just sits out there like it's like a statue, in the middle of the desert. So it's a kind of interesting dichotomy. And of course, if you look at the page 3 of this whole discussion, you've got the table 1. And the table 1 says the highest number of requests is that particular spot on Alisell Road, Maple to Eucalyptus. Yet, it doesn't come up red. It comes up like, well, maybe we'll think about it. It has no lighting.
They know you walk on it, Fred. They're just waiting for somebody to hit you some night, then we'll put it on there.
So, I don't understand how this was all ranked or the method that was used, because certainly table 1 was ignored. Ignored completely. And you've gotten people that have gotten up here and talked about that. The most number of people on a daily basis walk up that road. They hike up that road. Why? Because it's a nice steep incline. It's good exercise. Yeah, I just at a loss for why that wasn't addressed. It needs to be.
That's a priority to future sidewalk.
Yeah, really, really high priority.
2012.
Get real. It isn't. Anyway, I think the city council needs some new direction. And how can that happen? There's several
You didn't
ways.
run, Fred.
There's several ways.
Oops, excuse me, if I could just comment. So certainly, there's a lot of locations where sidewalk could be added. This is a 10-year plan, and staff tried to propose a plan that was financially realistic for the city, increasing our sidewalk expenditures a little bit, but not excessively. So the more money that you direct the staff to spend, we'll spend it. So this was
On this year with the red and the yellow, is that the 1.5 or is that 720 plus 1.5, or what is the cost of everything there, the yellow and the red?
The yellow and red here is the, well, I'd have to, let me flip. Yeah, the 700,000 is not shown here. That's just maintenance, the replacement.
Okay, I got you. So then this would be the 1.5.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
actually.
no, I think it should be all of it, right?
It's actually, hang on a second.
I guess part of my thought behind it is, given the fact that we're so limited on what we can invest in our return, if we kind of reverse engineer it and look at what it's going to cost in the future for any kind of construction or capital improvement across the board in the city, whether it be water wells or treatment or whatever, I think if we can get the projects done at a faster rate or invest in the city, the savings, at the 10-year point could be quite a bit based on labor going up and cost of materials and steel. I mean, everything it takes to do all this. I think if we can get it done faster, that might be a smart thing to do if the council's up for it. Maybe reduce it to 5, or I don't know.
Yeah, whatever the city council's pleasure is, the staff will do our best to implement that. And just to answer your question, it's just the red is the 1.6 million.
Just the red.
I agree with almost all the red because of the school. And that's what I'm seeing. And this is what I do see since I live in that area. I see school kids coming and going to school. I see moms coming along with little toddlers and school kids in the morning and the afternoon. I see them having to cross the street to get to sidewalks or walk on the street since there are no sidewalks. So I'm in full agreement that that is a priority for the school. Coming up, also coming up 5th Street from Oak. There's a lot of kids coming up from there. A lot of apartments down there, a lot of housing. So to me, that should be the priority. And then maybe we could put a different level of priority on portions of the yellows, and take a look at your list of respondents, and so you have your top one that could be the future A, or once the critical. And I think that the school portion is the critical portion. We got to take care of our kids, but then we can prioritize the rest of it.
So if I'm understanding you, maybe all the locations shown in yellow could be split into priority 2 and 3.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the higher priority of the yellow would be priority 2, and the
And
lower priority.
I think what you can do is you can take a look at what the residents have said as priority.
Sure.
But I want to make sure that these school kids, and without going back and looking at that right now, I do say that needs to be the number one priority, is getting kids and their parents and their little brothers and sisters safely to and from school.
And on that priority 1, the red, you're saying that's over 10 years?
Correct.
That doesn't sound like a priority.
Well, the comment I'm going to make is taking a look at the map here is, yes, I can see part of the priority around the school, but if you take a look right now, we do have, you've already put new sidewalks on the north side of Elm from 5th Street to 4th Place, and you do have nice sidewalks going up 4th Place and around the corner on Laurel next to the grammar school. So you do have some relatively brand new sidewalks right there. And if there were no sidewalks there at all, I would have go with it.
We've got a problem right there on Fifth.
Yeah, on the 5th.
Coming up to
Coming
where
up-
it hits.
Coming up Fifth, I did that, I did not mention that,
Okay.
because, coming up Fifth from Oak Street all the way up to the corner of Elm Street, that should remain as a priority. But I have a little bit of, question on Elm, going across Elm on the lower side, because on the uppers, going around the grammar school right now, you do have sidewalks on all four sides of the grammar school. And I don't really see, you have a relatively new sidewalk on the north side of Elm on those 3 housing lots along there. So I have a hard time making priority on the south side of Elm and on the west side of Fourth Place or the north side of Laurel up by the grammar school. Because you have, like I said, right now around the grammar school, you do have, good wide sidewalks all the way around that parcel where you need high sidewalks that I would say would be up Fifth Street from Oak to Elm. That would be, and you do have that as red on that right now. I can see that one there. And I would say maybe push some of the priority over to, some of the other streets on that one. And, maybe put that as, convert those to yellow and convert some of the other to red. Because the other one I see is over even on Laurel. You have from Laurel to Second Place. You have good sidewalks on the north side there, but from Second Place to Alisal, that's a very narrow street, and you still have a lot of people that live in the Alisal Oaks apartments, and a lot of kids that are walking down there. So that, to me, that should be a priority there. So it's.
I agree with that. Now, the sidewalk on Fifth Street, right in front of right across from Hanley's, below where the motel is, the Viking Motel, that's part of that underground. And what's the funding for that? Is that come from the underground project?
Yeah, the undergrounding, the utility undergrounding district is basically about 85 to 90% funded by the what's called Rule 20A credits, which is the credits we get through the California Public Utility Commission through PG&E. And then there's a small portion that would have to be funded by the city, but.
Okay, so but the sidewalk would be part of that then?
No.
Or would we just go in because of the convenience of having things dug up anyway?
Right. The idea is we don't want to put in all the new sidewalk and new curb and gutter, and then they come in and trench and tear up a bunch of it. So let them finish up tearing up what they got to tear up, and then when they're done, we'll follow in with the nice curb and gutter sidewalk and maybe some paving improvements to go with.
But that would be on our nickel, right?
That's the project we received grant funding for.
Okay.
Which we have grant funding to cover, I believe it's about 60% of the cost of that project.
Okay, all right. So that could get us, as Ed was talking about, that could get us up to the highway. Then we just have that little stretch from the alley up to
Yeah,
Elm.
that's included in the grant.
That is
Yeah,
grant also.
yeah.
Okay,
The
so
whole-
basically
everything on Fifth.
we're covered on it then.
Everything on Fifth, yeah.
Okay, so then I will take my priority away from the rest of it, and let's put it over where it makes some sense. Now, I like Ed's idea about the going up the hill from Second Place up to Alisal, because there is no sidewalk up there on Laurel.
And there are a heck of a lot of kids on that
Yeah,
street.
there's a lot of kids coming down there. So, but once you get down to Second Place, heading west on Laurel, towards the school, then you've got sidewalks again, on the one side at least.
Right, right.
And I think, we can't do it all, so let's make sure we get sidewalks on one side at least where we need it. And then, again, to me, because of kids involved, this has got to be a priority, and you do have a lot of kids coming down from those, from the upper end too.
Sure, sure.
And then let's take a look at the Alisal up the hill, from up towards, from Maple up to Laurel and Uke.
Okay, if you don't mind if I can just repeat back to make sure I'm understanding.
Yeah.
So, this section here of Laurel,
Yeah.
you would make that higher priority.
Yeah.
And the Alisal Road here, you'd.
No, I'd come down.
This.
Yeah, kind of that cross right in there.
Okay, so here and here, make that a higher priority, and then make this, and these sections,
Because there's already sidewalks on the opposite side of the street. I also want to talk about Fourth Place, and this is going to get way off subject, so I'm not going to. But when you got parking in there, you can almost get one car through on Fourth Place, almost.
yeah, it's tight.
Very tight.
I just may I just butt in for just a second? I have a
Please do.
concern about the motel that's on the corner there of Fifth Street and Mission. It's a red area, right in there.
Yeah.
That's their parking lot. Where are you gonna put the sidewalk?
Well, we have looked at that, and it's gonna be a little bit tricky, I have to confess. We think we can do it. We did a
Well,
preliminary.
let's not just think, let's know that we can do it before we try it.
Well, what we've done, we did a preliminary layout with our grant application. And with the preliminary layout, we felt comfortable that it could be done. And we will have to prepare, full-blown engineered construction drawings in order to do the construction. And so with that, we'll do a detailed survey. We will accurately plot out all the property lines and know exactly, we'll survey all that and we'll know exactly where everything is. And in fact, we'll be making a presentation back to the city council because of the significance of everything. And it will have impact a little bit to that business. Part of their structure is actually encroaching in the public right-of-way at this time. So, that'll have to be rectified. But
Is that the south wing?
yes. So we have looked at all that, and in fact, even trying to preserve that sycamore tree that's right there and fit the sidewalk between the tree and the building. And so we've looked at it pretty closely, but certainly we'd have to do final engineering. We'll hire a consultant to do all the surveying and prepare the final plans. And when we go through that process, we're going to present that back to the city council so that you can provide guidance and input and approve kind of the layout of everything, and kind of see how that's going to impact that area.
And we have right-of-way to all of this that we're seeing up here. We can put these in. We can just go and put them in.
Correct.
We don't
Correct.
have to do any kind of,
Well, all the red, we've verified the right-of-way. Some of the yellow locations, like for example on Laurel there, one of the priority areas that there may be some right-of-way acquisition required for that. And when I say right-of-way acquisition, typically what we do is try to work with the property owner to obtain a public access easement. So we just completed that on the corner of, I guess it's Fir and Second, to put a access ramp. And so generally speaking, most property owners consider it, where we're putting new sidewalk, they usually we have to add curb and gutter and other things. Most property owners consider that an improvement or increasing their property value. And so they're willing to work with us to grant us easements to fit the sidewalk or the access ramp on the corner and stuff. So
I know along Laurel, there's a terrible drainage problem along that area of Laurel.
Yeah, that's correct. You are correct.
That's gonna really take a lot of engineering.
Yeah, the south side there is, that's
Mhm.
gonna be a nightmare. But, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right, yeah. well,
Could that, if we're looking at sidewalks and could that be a part of it to take care of that problem, that drainage problem, and with a sidewalk?
Yeah, that's probably gonna be the most expensive stretch of sidewalk that the city will do in many, many years. And we would have to address the drainage. I mean, generally speaking, kind of the rule of thumb is, once the water gets into the public right of way and into the street, which is generally, most of the time, properties drain to the street. In that case, those lots are lower than the street, but the concept is, once the water gets into the street, we have to be very careful to keep it in the street and not let it, veer off through some.
That's just a concrete berm, or a asphalt berm on that side.
Correct.
All the way
There'd be a
down.
lot of engineering required, and there may be right-of-way required, and to get people's driveway approaches to work, because you gotta have the driveway go up to hold the water in the street, and then go back down to get, So, that's gonna be very expensive sidewalk.
I know if you take a look on Laurel right now where Alice L. Oaks apartments are, they have their sidewalk there. And if you start running the extension either east or west from there, I know if you run it east, it actually ends up going through a couple of houses. And if you take it west, goes all the way down over the hill. It cuts in a number of people's houses and yards also.
Yeah, so most of the locations shown do not have right-of-way or easement issues, but there are some that we know for sure do, Laurel in particular.
I think Alice L's gonna be interesting too.
Yeah.
The hour is growing late.
Yes, it is.
Sorry.
And we need to make a decision on, or review and approve. Are we suggesting that there should be some changes made, or are we going to approve as presented, or are there specific changes we need to make?
Well, I would like to be able to address some of the resident concern. I also want to make sure that our school kids are a priority. So, and we have red as a priority, but we can skip all the red except for the little stretch of Fifth Street from the alley up to Elm. We can skip all that red since there is already sidewalk that goes all the way around the school. I feel good about that. And then the sidewalk down there on the south side of Fifth, down to Oak Street. Then let's take a look up at the, and see if we can take some of whatever we were going to spend on Elm, Fourth, and Laurel, and see what we can see how that, we can take that money and use it on Alice L and the Laurel area, and just see how it pans out.
Okay.
If those were the real concerns, because I haven't paged back that way yet, the priorities of the residents. So that's my thought.
Any other thoughts along those lines? Okay.
And it could be a motion.
So we
Well,
can,
we can't do that just yet. We got to finish the presentation. We have
Oh,
to
we're
go to
not
Fred.
there yet. Oh, I'm sorry, Fred.
no, he's already given
Oh,
his
he already,
comments. We
I
finished.
I
Yeah,
lost it.
We're
I'm
there.
sorry.
We're there.
Okay.
So,
Remember you didn't have your nap
That's
today,
right.
so you're a little off.
So what we can do is the locations like Councilman Deuce just mentioned along Elm, Fourth, and Laurel by the school where there's already sidewalk on one side, we'll drop those locations down to priority 3, and we'll bump the stretch of Laurel between Second and Alisal, and Alisal Road from Maple to Eucalyptus as priority 1.
Yeah.
Yes.
And is there any other yellow location we should drop down to priority 3? That's, you think is kind of a,
What about Maple to Viborg? You have it here as 3. Shouldn't that be bumped up?
Maple to where?
Viborg.
Huh?
Maple doesn't run to Viborg.
Or what do we have here in our little graph or this little, you have it here, highest ranking sidewalk request locations. It says Maple Ave to Viborg Road.
yeah.
North Alisol.
Oh, that would be, up Alisal from Maple all the way up over the hill.
Is that all the way, that's that very top up there, right?
Yeah, the yellow, over the hill.
And right now we're looking at about halfway, is that what we're
portion
talking? Or are we
below it.
talking down on that
The
lower?
lower portion, yeah.
Is that the motion now?
Well, my motion is just on the priority 1 stuff.
Okay.
Okay.
And-
And
and
and you've got that understood?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I got that all marked up.
No,
Here-
hold on, I want one more clarification. 1, 2, or 3, it's all a 10-year project?
No, what's proposed with the funding in the plan is just everything that's priority 1 in the next 10 years. So that can, of course, that could easily be expedited, but if the city council wants to spend.
Can't we do it all in
Okay.
10 years? It's all priority.
All right,
So
some of
We're doing
it-
this stuff in 30 years from now? What's the point of even having it up
physically-
there?
Physically, it can be done. It's
Okay,
just-
so some of this has a date certain predicated on the power, right? From Fifth to Oak Street.
I'm sorry,
On Fifth from Oak to the highway on the south side.
That's correct.
That has a date predicated on the power thing.
Undergrounding.
Oh, the undergrounding, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if if we were to want to move along on this stuff, and say our first project would be to connect the alley to Elm Street as a priority, as this year's or next year's.
Well, again, everything on Fifth is part of the grant. So
That's
that would
right.
have- that would
Okay.
have to be one
So
project.
we're done with this area. So then we can say our priority would be somewhere up on Laurel, and we could do a section this year, or maybe next year.
Yeah, well, next year.
Yeah. And prioritize it that way.
Yeah, well, if you want to do more, like Councilman Zimmerman was suggesting, you'd want to basically have a larger project. You wouldn't construct a little bit of sidewalk each year.
No.
You'd have one or two, or maybe 3 big projects over this 10-year period to do big, get, large percentage of this stuff done. Then you're gonna get better bids and lower unit prices and things like that, so.
We're not doing it with a couple bags and a wheelbarrow. I mean, we're talking these little small sections, over 10 years. It seems kind of absurd.
Well, it's a little misleading because, like I said, a lot of the locations for new sidewalk, there's a fair amount of engineering sometimes required depending on the improvements that are there, and if you need to put curb and gutter, and you gotta look at the drainage issues, and,
How much dirt has to be moved, because I know that if you take a look over,
Yeah,
particularly over by Fourth,
Now,
Fourth Place in Laurel is,
Now, we've got a motion on the table.
Just a question for Matt again.
done.
Don't you have some, in the budget somewhere, capital improvements, don't you have this laid out already, dollar-wise for certain years, for sidewalk improvement? Don't we have that in 10-year, budget?
Well, yeah,
Capital?
We do in our 10-year, capital improvement program.
Mhm.
We do have sidewalk construction, but, that's at a much, lower, level than it's at a lower level than what's proposed, in the sidewalk master plan. And if I'm hearing you correctly, you want to even do more than that. So So next year, when we update the capital improvement program.
Okay, all right.
We'll show all that.
Got it.
that-
You got
that
it.
Additional expenditure that you.
Okay, so that would be in addition to what you have all there already.
Correct.
Okay.
I think what we're hearing is you would like to see this ramped up.
Yes.
So in the next year's CIP, you're
Yeah.
gonna see that 10-year come drag back to
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
near term.
And I highly recommend waiting until you see the next year's CIP as part of your budget process, because then you analyze all of your capital improvement needs at the same time. Because what happens when we look at one little piece is we think, boy, that's all really good to do all of this. But if we're not looking at it with all the other things, we don't know what we're sacrificing.
Considering we were just talking about streets and sidewalks here, and earlier we were talking about a multi-million-dollar project
Exactly, you
on-
want to analyze them, in that sense, you want to analyze them all at the same time, so that you don't do things accidentally. And I'll give another bad example. Atascadero one time got really excited about improving the pavilion at the lake and improving their police station at the same time. And they were so excited. They're both really good projects. The problem was they spent all of the money they had to get them both done without thinking about any of the other priorities they had in town. So they got two really nice projects done, but then they couldn't do anything for 10 years because they didn't analyze it in relation to its impacts. And it would have been fine had they decided, we'd rather get those two things done and all the rest can wait. But they didn't even think about it that way. It was just they got all excited about the one
Right,
project
yeah.
that was in front of them.
So maybe this information will be helpful. Over the last 8 years, we've spent, on average, about $90,000 per year on sidewalk repairs and new installation. With this plan, we're proposing to bump that to on average, $140,000 per year. We would not do a project every year, we'd do it every other year or something to make a bigger project, but that's the average, so we were already bumping up. And that's, of course, the staff made these recommendations in light of the whole, our knowledge of the 10-year capital improvement program, so like as the city attorney was suggesting. But certainly, we can spend more and get it done faster, if that's what you'd like.
No, we have a motion on the table, on the floor, I mean. And could somebody repeat that motion so I can ask for a second?
Okay, so my understanding of the motion is that it would be adopting the plan with the following modifications. The 3 locations around Solvang Elementary School, around the lower campus of the Solvang Elementary School, which includes a block of Laurel, a block of 4th, and 2 sections of Elm, yeah, thank you. Those would be moved to priority 3 in the sidewalk master plan. The section of Laurel from Second Place to Alisal Road, and the 2 blocks of Alisal Road from Maple up to Laurel and Laurel to Eucalyptus would be moved to priority 1. And that would be it.
Can I have a second for that motion?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Will you call the roll, please? Or discussion? No, we've discussed it.
We discussed it.
Yeah, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Dews?
Yes.
Skit?
Yes.
Jameson?
Yes.
Zimmerman?
No.
Mayor Richardson?
Did I hear a no? Yes. It was a pass 4-1. The hour is late. After 9 o'clock, we need a council approval to continue on with the agenda for item 10, and also we're going to go into closed session. So do we want to table item 10? Do we want to take item 10 and then go into closed session? Or do we want to just go away and come back in 2 weeks?
I want to stretch.
I think we do 10 right now. Sandra's here, she's been waiting. Let's just get it done.
Do you want to do 10?
Let's do
Go ahead with it.
Let's take a break and stretch.
All right.
We can do 10 as I go on a cookie run, I don't care. Start it.
Okay, so we agree that we'll continue on with 10.
will be fast. You know me. I'm like,
Out of recess. Next item is item 10. Will you read that, please?
Can I make a motion?
No.
Receive the report.
done?
Would you read the?
Item 10, fiscal year 2015-16 financial review.
Staff report.
Good evening, Mayor Richardson and council members. Sandra Featherson, your Director of Administrative Services. Tonight, I'm here to talk to you about the June 30, 2016.
Can't hear you well. Mic on?
Okay? Should I talk a little closer, maybe?
Am I hearing?
Yes.
Okay, so, good evening one more time. I'm here to talk to you about the June 30, 2016 fiscal year-end fund balances and how we did. This is a brief overview. As a reminder, our auditor, Terry Krieg, has reviewed our financial statements. Our final audit opinion is pending at this time on some of our additional valuations that we have to do related to OPEB, our post-employment benefits, and our pension liabilities. And so once those come in, we will finalize the financial statements, and I will be doing a final update in January once our CAFR, our Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, is completed. At this time, though, the auditor does not anticipate any findings. Things were fine. In the table, you will see a listing of all of our different funds and our fund balances, and identified there is where the fund ended up in fiscal year 14-15, where the year ended up for 15-16, and our net increase or decrease. You'll notice that the general fund, the overall increase to the general fund was almost $1 million at $934,000. Our government impact fees went up about $191,000, and so on. So I'm not going to read through all of those because they're in the staff report. But the general fund, the increase can be primarily attributed to the increase in transit occupancy tax. We had budgeted $3.5 million, and we came in at about 4.1 for an overall increase of about $639,000. So that's where really the additional revenue came from for the general fund this year. Our sales tax is relatively flat with a minor increase of $41,000, and our property tax similarly relatively flat with an increase of about $56,000. Our building permits was up higher than anticipated at $70,000, and so on. And so kind of an overall, I gave you kind of the big picture of the highest increases in the different revenue sources there in that table. Also in the general fund, while we had some additional revenue increases, we had some less than anticipated expenditures. For example, we had some projects that we did not complete in 15-16 and that will be moved to the 16-17 fiscal year, such as our HCA restroom upgrades. We anticipated spending about $100,000, but we're anticipating doing that project in the current fiscal year. We have savings on salaries when we have employees that are out on a leave, or if there's turnover and we use a temp to fill that position. And then one of our other savings was on the law enforcement contract. We were anticipating a higher contract originally. They continued their negotiations, and so we saved a little money this year. And so you'll see some in the table there, the difference between what we actually spent versus what we budgeted, and that's also part of the reason for the additional increase overall in the general fund, less expenditures. In terms of how we plan to use that extra money, you'll see a table also in the staff report that identifies our overall fund balance for the general fund. So we have an unassigned amount of about $5.5 million, sorry, 5.3. For emergencies, we've designated 4.1 million, and that's part of our fund balance reserve policy that we are to have 50% of our operating expenditures budgeted as a reserve. And so we meet that threshold as of June 30, 2016. We are designating some money for the recycling grant, about $18,000, and then we have some that's non-spendable, about $76,000. And those are typically prepaid items that we pay for in one fiscal year that will be spent in the following fiscal year. So that comprises our overall fund balance of $9.5 million in the general fund. So you'll notice there that we have a pretty healthy reserve, and so when I come back in January, and we'll have had a chance to really evaluate what our costs are for the upcoming year in relation to pension liability and our post-employment retirement benefit costs. And so we may come back with some suggestions on how to potentially use some of those reserves to help pay down those costs in the future years.
Are we talking those costs be less than $1 million?
No.
For the pension liability?
No, right now, the pension liability is at about 2.8 million, I think, between
Sorry?
2.8 and 2.9
2.8,
for pension
almost
liability. Identifies the unrestricted net position, and that's really similar to the term fund balance that we have on the general fund side. You'll notice in water that there was an increase of 3.3 million, but that is a result of some accounting principle changes. So we worked with our auditor this year to make some changes in accounting principle, and so that's why we have that increase, but that's not the true increase. The true increase is about $625,000, and what we did was we reclassified the water payment that we make every year. That's at about 2.4 to 2.9 million, in that range, and we were identifying that as a current year expense in prior reports, but the auditor has suggested that truly that's another one of those prepayment items that we pay that payment in May, but it's really for the upcoming fiscal year. So by doing that change, that's why we have that increase. On the other one was the refundable rate reserve deposit that is held by the CCWA. He wanted us to identify that and put that on our books as well, and so that's a result of those changes. But the good news was that the water fund did increase at about $625,000. If you'll recall, I've been saying the sky is falling on the water fund for the last few years, and identifying that with the budgets that we had been projecting, we were going to end up in a negative situation. So we don't have that right now because we spent much less than we were anticipating in 15-16 due to some changes in and priorities of the council. So right now that the water fund is not in a deficit, and we have some money to go forward with some of your future projects.
That's good news.
And that concludes my staff report. So I'm available if you have any questions.
Are there any questions of the report?
Yeah, that, the next paragraph down, that 750, is that table A water?
Yes.
And that was coming out of general fund, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment that on the remaining fund balance of the emergencies of 4.127.
Yes.
When I got on the council back in 2002, I think that fund was approximately about it was more than that, but it was only about just over about $1 million and a half. So it's nice to see that larger amount of money in there, and I think that goes as a really congratulations to not only you but all the other previous finance directors we've had over the last couple of years to been able to bring that back from the brink of bankruptcy.
Thank you.
On the reclassification in the water fund, is that, can you explain that a little bit? Is it reclassified within the water fund, or how does that, or is it now removed and has its own placement in the budget permanently?
Let me think about the best way. I'm not sure I'm going to have the best answer for you, but originally we had booked the expense of, like, I want to say 2.4 million in the current year, and he took that out and identified it as a prepayment on the prior year. And so he basically restate the financials from the prior year, kind of the starting balance. So it's still there, but you're gonna see it in 16, 17, and it'll wash out. So,
Okay.
I could probably provide a more technical answer.
Yeah, we.
Kinda
we'll-
good. I mean,
we'll
that's kinda
pay
what
it
I
in the-
figured.
We'll pay it in the current fiscal year, but it's actually a future year debt, so the books show it differently. And so it's gonna take us 2 years to get the cycle back to where it looks normal, so.
You'll probably have some real explaining to do next year, because it's not going to look good.
Probably.
Yeah, without this story behind it.
Where did $3 million go in 1 year?
Exactly. Well, I'll be back talking about the water fund when it's time for the budget again.
Smoke and mirrors. Any other questions, comments for the staff report? Thank you, Sandra. Now we go to the public. I have one public speaker, Fred Koval.
This and the CAFR to me are called sleight of hands. And I enjoy reading and seeing the numbers as posted. On a positive note, though, I wish that this had been presented first in place of 7. I think it would have put real perspective into where we stand, instead of hearing about how much this was going to cost to do treatment at the wells. I think this would have given us a little healthier outlook as to what kind of monies would be available. So I appreciate it from this standpoint, but again, I wish it had been first.
Thank you, Fred. I have no other speaker slips. Does anyone else wish to speak? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council for action.
Accept.
Accept and refile the report. We don't need a motion for that. We recognize the report. Thank you.
And very nice, thank you.
Yes. All right. Next item is a closed session item. Would you please announce that? Fred? I'll go- You want my advance? The advance calendar. Yeah, do I could announce closed session?
Item 13, closed session, Government Code Subdivision A of Section 54956.9, existing litigation, amendment to permit 15878 in front of the State Water Resources Control Board.
And I'm assuming we're just going to ignore committee reports.
Say that again?
I assume we're just going to ignore committee reports.
Is there one?
No, probably not, but you should, but it's on the agenda.
I determined that there wasn't one. Okay, we'll go to closed session.